Welcome to This Dumb Week, a weekly live Twitter space hosted by Alex Marinos and yours truly, Dr. RollerGator. Available in podcast form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and others. Alex, welcome back. Have you had a sufficiently dumb week?
Not yet. Let's see what you can sneak in under the line.
Whoa, wait. You're saying that you're one of the few people who's had a perfectly fantastic, non-controversial, nothing too dumb week?
No, I just said it has not been sufficiently dumb.
All right. Okay.
It's hit its normal limits, but not yet over the top. So
okay.
I'm just waiting to see what you get in the Sunday. You know.
Well, I'll try to ease you into it, and we'll start off with a small story that is actually my main purpose in everything I do, which is pro-duck propaganda. Everything I do is just a way to feed in the pro-duck propaganda slowly but surely throughout everyone's system.
Justin and Tori Canarelli almost have a typical American family. 2 kids and a dog. But then they've also got this duck.
I never thought I would own a duck. I never expected him to stay long term.
Tori brought Louie home after he hatched at an elementary school on Long Island, New York. It was supposed to be a short little visit. But the duck quickly became indispensable for one family member in particular. Their golden retriever, Barley. Yeah, a couple years ago, Barley started to have seizures. They put her on medication and it worked. The seizures stopped. But the family also observed some adverse side effects.
She wasn't really hyperactive anymore.
She just lost her spunk. She lost her goldenness.
And we thought, oh man, this medication we have to give her for the rest of the life, so this is how she's going to be.
There's nothing you can do for them. There's no way to help them.
But then they noticed a bond building.
Now, we know there was a way.
A friendship built peck by peck.
She started smiling again. She started wagging her tail. She started having personality again.
Today, the two remain virtually inseparable. Louie pecks at Barley. Barley chases Louie. They wrestle and relax together. And although Justin and Tori may never know exactly what shifted within Barley, their son Cam has a theory.
She wanted to be friends with Louie and hang out with him a lot, so she kind of stretched her joy and help and fit in with him.
And that's how a duck helped a retriever stay golden. Steve Hartman, CBS News, New York.
All right, Alex, so there's your pro-duck propaganda for today. Even dog's favorite animal is a duck. So
we can rename the podcast into DuckTales if you wish to take it in that direction.
Well, I'm a little bit afraid of copyright infringement there, sir, or trademark violations. We don't have the staff. We don't have the retainer.
This Duck Week.
This Duck Week. All right. All right. Well, Alex, the Senate has had a little bit of a tumultuous couple of weeks. We lost Lindsey Graham a few weeks ago suddenly due to, a blown aorta or something along those lines, just randomly overnight right after talking to Donald Trump. And Mitch McConnell was disappeared for approximately 3 weeks and showed a couple photos of him supposedly in rehabilitation that caused people to claim that they were AI generated. So there's been some controversy with the health and livelihood of the Senate members. Have you been familiar with that since we've talked about it several times that there's some health issues going on?
Yes. Both actions of the Putin regime have been high on my radar.
All right. Well, Alex, I bring some sad news this week from the New York Times. Beth, the beloved vacuum of a 92-year-old Iowa senator, has died. Beth, a trusty tan Hoover vacuum cleaner with a burgundy cloth dust bag that for years tended to the floors of the Iowa farmhouse Senator Chuck Grassley, earning admirers in both parties, has died. She was believed to be 49. The cause was apparently an electrical problem, said Mr. Grassley, the Republican who often admiringly posted images of his cleaning companion on social media around Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, and family reunions. You will see Beth no more, Mr. Grassley, 92, and the oldest senator, wrote on social media on Saturday, attaching an image that showed Beth's electrical cord connector scarred by sparks. See, Black? That's from the electrical sparks. It's not safe to use anymore. Goodbye, Beth. He declared it a sad day at the Grassley household and recalled that Beth had worked dependently for 34 years at his home and for 15 years before that at his mother-in-law's house. He wrote of Beth, "You have been a real workhorse," adding, "I will miss you." Year after year, around the holidays, during other occasions when cleaning was in order, Mr. Grassley would fire up Beth. The vacuum, he said, allowed him to make a contribution to the festivities as others in the family prepared food. At roughly 49, Beth had been at work since before Mr. Grassley, a corn and soybean farmer, reached the Senate in 1981. The vacuum was also older than several U.S. senators. But Beth drew public notice only in recent years when Mr. Grassley, who had an irreverent style on social media, began to post about his vacuum. In 2020, Mr. Grassley announced the death of a pigeon by writing on social media, "If you lost your pet pigeon, it's dead in front of my yard in Iowa farm, just discovered." 2 days before Thanksgiving in 2018, Mr. Grassley wrote on social media, "Miss G and daughter Wendy have started big job of preparing meal for 30 at farm for Thanksgiving. So my housework contribution begins. This is my machine, Beth." He made a habit of such posts. Faithful Beth has about 3 hours of cleaning to get ready for 25 to 30 Grassley family people, he wrote on Christmas in 2022. For Thanksgiving in 2023, he shared a video of Beth rowing across a rug as he pushed the vacuum and shuffled behind it. The same year, Mr. Grassley posted an image of him and Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Republican of West Virginia, holding a cutout image of Beth. Turns out Senator Capito is a big fan of Beth, he wrote. Beth had, by any measure, an extraordinarily long life for an upright vacuum cleaner. A typical vacuum might last for 8 years, according to Consumer Reports, though lifespans vary by brand. Hoover says that its upright vacuums last 8 years on average, and that its cordless vacuums are good for about 5 years on average. Tektronic Industries, which owns Hoover, did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Beth's demise. But within hours of Mr. Grassley's announcement, other in politics began to take notice and to offer condolences. "Sorry for your loss, Senator." Josh Turek, a Democratic state representative in Iowa running for the state's other Senate seat, wrote on Saturday evening on social media, "Sounds like Beth had heck of a run." So, Alex, how long of a moment of silence do you wish to take to mourn the passing of Beth?
I'm just very confused as to why they wouldn't try to repair this piece of extraordinarily sturdy equipment. But
I don't know if they could get there in time, and I don't know what sort of damage occurs if you don't get them resuscitated within a certain period of time. I'm not 100% sure.
You're suspecting sepsis.
What a life! What a life! In somewhat similar news, Alex, Hunter Biden says his father's cancer has spread. It's very painful and it's very debilitating. Former President Joe Biden's prostate cancer has spread to other parts of his body and is causing him pain, even as he continues to speak out on public issues, his son Hunter Biden said in an interview. In a wide-ranging interview with the CBS News partner BBC News late on Friday, Hunter Biden grew emotional as he discussed his father's condition, describing it as a very sad to watch. "The cancer has spread, metastasized into his bones and further," he said. "It's very painful and is very debilitating in many respects." Joe Biden, 83, was the oldest man to serve as U.S. president, and his age was a source of concern for much of his 4 years in office. He and his White House advisors have faced intense criticism for allegedly concealing the extent of his problems, especially after he was forced to abandon his bid for re-election after a disastrous debate with his eventual successor, Donald Trump. The former president revealed his cancer diagnosis in May of last year, less than 4 months after he left the White House. At the time, his office said that his cancer was diagnosed with a Gleason score of 9, which placed him in a grade group 5, the most severe category. Last September, the former president also underwent surgery for skin cancer in a procedure that involves cutting away thin layers of skin until only cancer-free tissue remains in the treated area. And last October, he underwent a round of radiation therapy for his prostate cancer, his office said. I did not know he was riddled with so much different types of cancer. Not that I find that funny, Alex, but I was not aware there was several that he was fighting at the same time.
and yet they didn't detect this other one until conveniently 4 months after he lost the election.
Yes, correct.
How much do you believe that?
Well, let's just say I'm a little bit skeptical that he was unaware of this, but also had he won this re-election, I don't think that he would have stepped down for at least another year because the ability for a vice president to be president is at most 10 years. And if they secede to the power of the presidency by him resigning too early, they get cheated. They get cheated out of several years. So if he does it 1 year in, if he resigns 1 year in, max can only serve 7 years, right? They'll get 3 of that remaining term, get reelected, serve 4. They only get 7 total instead of 10. They'd be cheated out of 3 extra years.
Can you imagine having 7 years of Kamalaness instead of 10?
I don't know what that would be like, but I imagine that it would be funny in different ways than this current one is funny. Honestly, I can remember getting the diagnosis and it was just shocking, she said. She also indicated the cancer was not discovered while he was serving in the White House. Well, the doctor said that according to the American Urological Association, that men over 70 don't need a PSA, a blood test anymore, because it's a slow growing cancer. I do feel we had an amazing care in the White House, but somehow that was missed, she said at the time. Hunter Biden said the diagnosis had been tough on the family. It's really sad to watch, Hunter Biden said. The only thing that I'd say about my dad, about his health right now, is I wish he would complain more, because it's not good. But Hunter Biden said his father remains out there speaking publicly about the issues that are important to him. He's still doing his thing, he said. He so believes in this country. The former president will publish a memoir, Promise Me America, after the midterm elections. So, of course, I wish the former president the best, and hope that if this is a terminal progression, that he does not suffer too much.
So, moving on, have you
Yes.
been as puzzled by the recent sort of emergence of Hunter Biden as a standalone operator? Let's put it that way, as a brand
Puzzled?
frontman.
Not so much puzzled. I mean, his entire life's existence has been in that sort of popularity, image game, right? It's not like this is out of the ordinary. Now his period. What was that?
I mean, you mean as an artist? Has been
as a famous artist. No, but I mean, look, his father was doing this for how many decades? I mean, if you go back to the 80s when Joe Biden was running for president, you have the montages of him fabricating entire aspects of his existence to try to, weasel his way through getting elected. And he got busted pretty much on every single fabrication that he told, but he just kept going through. So, riding on your past failures, let's say, as a well-known crack addict and prolific fornicator is not exactly something that is a hurdle for people who are routinely used to just bullshitting your way through everything that you have done in life to overcome. So with a good PR team and leaning into the rehabilitation nature of chronic drug use, where people do root for someone to come back and establish themselves and live a good life after hitting rock bottom. I think it would be a normal
bangers on Twitter. Yep.
I think that would be a normal sort of progression.
let's see where this goes. If he ever runs as a Republican for president.
Well, you indicated that you found it suspicious or at least odd, right? So what do you find, or you, at least with your question, you hinted that you did. So what do you find odd?
It's just baffling. Like you don't see, like, I don't know, Malia Obama being the darling of the right-wing podcast circuit or something. It's just not what you expect. Okay,
so you're talking about the partial embrace of him in certain circles as being the odd part?
I guess, like, a whole of it. I don't know. I don't have a very well-defined critique of the situation. I'm just sort of, in the what region.
All right. Well, don't worry. The other side of the aisle has its plentiful supply of charlatans and ne'er-do-wellers.
We'll continue to monitor the situation. Yes.
NPR, Capital One says it closed Trump Organization accounts over money laundering concerns. Capital One Bank has asked a federal judge to dismiss a lawsuit from the Trump Organization over a closure of hundreds of bank accounts back in 2021, arguing in new papers that the shutdowns were a product of a months-long anti-money laundering review, not retaliation for the January 6th Capitol riot, as the Trump family businesses have claimed. In a motion to dismiss the case filed Friday in a Florida federal court, Capital One's lawyers wrote that the bank's own filings and the Trump business's allegations make clear that Capital One closed plaintiff's account for anti-money laundering reasons. The bank said the decision followed months of analysis and a careful review by its financial crimes team, which said it was staffed by employees with decades of law enforcement experience. But the filing suggested the Trump Organization and affiliated entities were given no opportunity to address any money laundering or compliance concerns before the account's closures. It is unclear if subsequent banks for the Trump Organization have ever raised money laundering concerns or what steps the organization took in response to Capital One's allegations. The Trump's organization didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. The fight is one of several lawsuits Trump-aligned entities have brought against major banks since Trump returned to the White House. A years-long dispute over hundreds of accounts, the cases center on roughly 385 accounts tied to the Trump Organization, Eric Trump, and a collection of affiliated businesses, including a winery, a bottled water company, and a golf course developer that banked with Capital One for more than a decade before the accounts were shut down in mid-2021. In an amended complaint filed earlier in July, the Trump-affiliated companies insisted the closures had nothing to do with financial crime or money laundering, but everything to do with politics. The Trump Organization alleges Capital One moved to distance itself from Donald Trump after the Capitol riot, and that a bank cited anti-money laundering rationale was invented after the fact to cover for that decision. Now, I just want to point out there is no relationship between the supposed Capitol riot and Capital One Bank. The Capitol part is just a coincidence and a similar name for those who are not aware. Capital One has flatly denied those assertions, with its lawyers arguing in a new filing that Trump's theory rests on cherry-picked quotations unsupported by the full context of the bank's own records, and that nothing in the complaint shows the anti-money laundering explanation was a cover story. The bank's lawyers also noted that it's kept its reasoning for the closures confidential at the time. It never publicized the termination decision, nor its confidential internal processes giving rise to the closure, and gave the Trump companies months plus several extensions to move their money elsewhere, which they did. Large sections of the Trump-linked amended complaint from July remain blacked out under a court-approved sealing order, including the entire portion titled January 6, 2021, the political trigger. The bank says its contract gave it broad discretion. Beyond disputing the facts, Capital One has reiterated in the court filing that it had the right to close any account at any time for any or no reason without notice, language the Trump companies do not dispute. The presiding judge, Roy Altman, has already dismissed an earlier version of the lawsuit in March on similar grounds, ruling that a bank's reason for closing an account under that kind of open-ended contract clause generally cannot be second-guessed in court. Capital One has asked Altman to dismiss the new complaint permanently this time without another chance to refile. Now, that raises a question for me, Alex. If you're going to cancel accounts under suspicion of money laundering, isn't there some obligation to report it to the authorities that you're doing this instead of, hey, we think you're laundering money, you can go do that elsewhere, just not here, so that we don't see it?
Well, I don't know, right? It depends. If you are, for example, like knowingly, removing customers that are not, hitting some algorithm score for suspicion, you're not really accusing them of money laundering. You're just saying, it's like if, an LLM, let's say, blocks your query because it is too close to feeling like you're developing biological weapons. It's not going to tell you, it's not really accusing you of developing biological weapons. They just say, we can't guarantee you're not, so we can't really proceed with this transaction, so to speak. So I don't know. I could see it. I don't know. I mean, it does sound suspicious. I'm not going to say no, but I could see how, this is a case of like an uncertainty more than an actual finding, if you see what I mean.
Right. Well, Alex, in completely unrelated news.
Well, today was the first official trading day for financial firms and others to get early access to Donald Trump's Truth Social posts. That is, if they signed up to a new subscription service from Trump Media and Technology Group, which went live this weekend. Subscribers can pay up to $100,000 per month to get Truth Social posts from Trump and other top accounts before general users do. Critics say the arrangement raises questions about insider trading. The company has dismissed such concerns.
There you go, Alex. In completely unrelated news, the Truth Social advanced notice API is going live.
I mean, if anything, this is outsider trading, surely.
I mean, it is slightly different insider trading if you are able to easily just buy your way to the inside and you don't actually have to rely on keeping it secret and playing favorites. Now, my question here, Alex, is given Trump's tweets are largely, let's say, psychotic in nature and contradictory over a long enough timeline, is the benefit simply that like today he's going to say that the Strait of Hormuz is going to be open, even though it's not going to be open, but you want to get in advance of him saying it because you're going to make a trade because he's going to say it. And it's better to know when he says it because something happens, because it's not like you're getting actual information from the man.
Yes. No, well, that's the thing, right? Like, I've wondered a lot about his ability to move the market, because surely at some point an individual trader understands that this is not anything to write home about, to say the least. However, there's this sort of shelling point quality whereby the fact that he said it is now known to make people make certain trades, and therefore you have a need to get ahead of the trades that you know are going to happen, which is a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you see what I mean. And therefore, even knowing that this is irrelevant, you still make the trades because you can't guarantee that other people won't find it relevant, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Right. But how many cycles of the back and forth of that do you extract the value of $100,000 for access to that API? And are you able to share that with one? I mean, because you only really need one person with the quickest access before you can duplicate that pretty low latency information. So, yeah, I mean,
one of my favorite theories about this product is that it's intended to hide the true insider trades by creating a secondary wave of also insider trades.
Okay, wait, expand that idea.
So let's say you are, I don't know, Kara Jushner or something, who somehow lands upon, some information about what the president might or might not tweet in the next 20 seconds. Well, ideally, you want to make your trades and you want a bunch of other trades to hit at the same time, such that your trades don't look as unique as they otherwise might have.
All right, so it's a little bit of a confusion play. So I don't know. I can't imagine exactly how to profit off of milliseconds advance notice on a Trump tweet. I can't. I don't know how to profit off of that.
I guess the easy one, and this actually requires a fact check, because I have not myself confirmed the information I'm about to share. that apparently bets on commodities are somehow exempt from insider trading that is about stocks, right? So if you can get a feeling that this will affect the price of oil, say, it is apparently not, technically speaking, insider trading if you make a bet on the price of oil as opposed to the price of, say, like Nvidia stock.
Okay, well, I guess if that's a loophole, it's good to be in the commodities, and I think all the cryptocurrencies that he also is a part of are commodities traded, right? So insider information on a new Trump NFT, perhaps.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, yeah, but I mean, we have to say that this is completely ridiculous. Just like all of it. I don't know.
Well, Alex,
this is even happening
as we move forward here.
Even if technically legal, I mean, the symbolics here are just could not be worse.
As we move forward, you were fascinated last week by the existence of a controversy and a community where this controversy existed, because you had, as you expressed it, thought everyone had moved to blue sky with this type of sentiment, involving Hank Green, his usage of LLMs, and a backlash for him using LLMs in his generation of ideas and videos. You recall this discussion? Well,
I do.
You may or may not know that in the last week of this controversy, he has issued a formal public apology for his behavior.
So last week, I posted publicly about how I have been so enticed by LLMs. Always starting on a new project or prototyping a game or researching climate change regulations and 18th century organic chemistry and the history of screwdrivers all at the same time. The more time I spent with it, the more every problem was starting to look like an LLM-shaped problem, and that's dumb. Of course, because of how online discourse works, some of the response has been silly or bad faith criticism. No one is using AI to write crash course videos, no matter what an AI-generated headline said. Complexly's AI policy is years old. It mentions Bard in it, so that's how old it is. And that policy is extremely clear. And this is the thing that I feel most bad about. Whatever reputational hit or loss of trust I have brought upon myself here, that's mine to take and try to earn back. But the people who work at Complexly, who write SciShow and Endlings and Eons and Crash Course, and who work with experts and make sure that they get everything right, do the video editing, make the visuals beautiful, do that hard work of putting together some of the most valuable videos in the world, are now being called into question because of my issue. So this video is two things. First, it is an apology to the people who work at Complexly. I'm so sorry. Like, you are so good, and I'm so lucky I get to work with you, and I see how hard that work is. And of course, I'm really closely associated with Crash Course and SciShow, but there are whole teams of people who have each other's backs, who are just trying their damnedest to make great things that help people understand the world. I get that not everybody's gonna get this, and I understand that what I do, no matter what context I do it in, is going to reflect on Complexly. And so I should be more careful, and I should not be on Twitter. Everybody agrees I should not be on Twitter. Second thing, following Complexly's lead, an AI policy. This all started because I said I needed to realign the way I use LLMs. I have thought a lot about that this week. I'd become too reliant on them for advice, for editing, and for sourcing. So I'm creating an AI policy for myself. One of the things I've been hearing in the discussion around this, and I'm glad this discussion is being had, is that this is a good idea. I encourage creators to do this. It doesn't even have to be public. Just have it. I wish I had had it. Another thing I've been hearing is that people don't want me to make stuff because like I'm rushing through a list of boxes I need to check off a list. I have never felt this way. Like sometimes I will want a video to be more elaborate than it ends up being because I need to be done with it, but I only make videos that I think are valuable. I don't like have a schedule that needs to be kept. I stopped doing brand deals at the beginning of the year on Hank's channel specifically because I didn't like having that lock-in. So it's not that I don't want to make stuff. I want to make too much stuff and I am convinced that it is possible. That's the problem. Whether it's an attempt at like legitimate analysis of the very weird world that we find ourselves in, or it's just goofing off, I want to make that stuff. I like making videos, but I want to make sure that I like making them, not just having them be done. But that I have heard from people that they feel like I might just be checking boxes, that's a fault all on its own. And I think there's lots of opportunity for me to be more choosy in a way that results in like only good outcomes. For like me as a person, for the content and for the audience. Like ultimately, let's be honest with ourselves. There's not too few YouTube videos. I still don't have the certainty that I would love to have about where we are right now or where we're heading. But having sat for a week and listened to this conversation, I feel more aware of what my job is right now. And a huge part of that is to be myself. Making more things does not make me make better things. And people need to be able to absolutely trust that my takes are my takes, which they are. And I know that there are a variety of perspectives on what AI should and shouldn't do, but for me, you can see the policy in the description. Everybody, thank you. John, I'll see you on Tuesday.
So he said, Alex, there at the end that he has a new policy and he put it in the description. Do you want to take any guess as to what his new policy is on AI usage and creation of his content?
I will do whatever it takes to get you maniacs off my back.
All right. Now, if you were to reword that...
Is that it?
If you were to reword that so that it wasn't as blatantly said, perhaps, if you could find some way of
yeah, I was reading through the lines. Of course, I wasn't copying its content. God forbid.
The Hank Green AI policy. 1, no portion of any script will be written, edited, or outlined by an LLM. 2, the thesis of a video will always originate with a human. 3, no image or music in a video will be generated by AI. If something is accidentally included, best efforts will be made to remove it. That is his AI policy. Now, I'm not sure exactly what hard lines he's specifically starting to cater, because if the script won't be edited by an LLM or outlined by an LLM, is the outline something that also won't be edited? So he doesn't have an LLM assistant helping him with the outline at all, generating ideas for an outline that he then manually includes in an outline. Questions like that are come to my mind as to where's the wiggle room, because he's not saying he's not going to use LLMs for anything. So presumably he can do research with LLMs, using them somewhat as a glorified search engine. One presumes, because he didn't say that he wouldn't do that. The thesis of a video will always originate with a human is, I guess, clearer in some ways. But given that you're going to be constantly interacting with an LLM, unclear if perhaps through your process of interacting with an LLM, it can provide you a sentence that sparks a thought that creates a thesis for a video, which is then technically generated by the LLM and not you.
Look, I mean, ultimately, right, like this is seeking some sort of, I mean, talk about a purity spiral, because ultimately, what if you watch a video by somebody else who got the idea for that video by the LLM, and that video triggers in your brain some sort of insight about what you want to do for your next video or whatever. Mm-hmm. Now what? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
right.
It's done, man. We're cooked. It's over. I don't know. Gator, but so like really this whole thing, I've I spent a little bit more time consuming material about it, and I had seen this one too. I guess like Hank Green just washes over me like water. There's nothing that I can see this man talk, and I'm like, that is really insightful. It's more like, I don't know, like libbot response. It's very LLM-like for something it didn't take any LLMs to write, apparently. I don't know what to say. But like this whole thing just, on one level, hits me as like so self-inflicted. It's wild. Like, dude uses an LLM to do some research and fucking self-flagellates himself over social media, hoping to get a rest. And then like that ends up triggering like this massive wave of people being like, you're not being open with me, Hank Green. What else are you doing with these LLMs? And it's like, seriously, nothing. Here's my policy.
Well,
so I don't know. I will say, however, in watching, some people who are much younger than me talk about this in a somewhat thoughtful context, I'm just struck by the fact that a lot of this is about how that generation feels about itself in the wake of LLMs, just like, taking down another like tower every 5 or 20 minutes. That it's more, that whole thing about like, well, bro could have hired a researcher vibe. Like, it makes more sense to me now, because it's like, what are we gonna do? And that feeling I get, like these people are just about to enter, the job market or whatever, and you're just seeing this thing coming and like, just capturing, market after market. And you're like, what are we good for? You know what I mean? It can get deep. And I see how that surfaces in ways that make no sense, like shouting at a creator for like using a slightly better search engine, or I don't know, talking about data centers and water usage or whatever. Like the actual issues themselves are retarded. But I think there's a there when it comes to the psychology of this generation.
Well, let's think of a there. You're what you're saying to me seems to tug at something like the idea of internships, and if the LLM replaces the value that interns might have been able to provide, or a large portion of it, then internships as a way of entry into a particular market sector where you are learning skills as a trade for lower wages and things like that, and getting a foot in the door, disappear as an example of a legitimate concern someone might have.
As an example, yes.
Okay, I wanted to set that as the floor there.
Entry level jobs in any sort of thing that you might want to become, right? Like it could be junior developers, for example, that might in the past might have been tasked with, like, I don't know, writing the tests, or like, sprucing up some code base that hasn't been touched in 20 years,
figuring out the current way to center a div.
Sure. The sort of thing you might do with an LLM today without thinking twice, right?
Right.
Anyway, that was the part that at least made this whole thing be less retarded in my brain, even though it still is retarded, don't get me wrong. But before we move on, Gator, I wanted to ask you, what is your LLM usage policy? Do you have one?
I use it whenever the hell I feel like it, for whatever the hell I feel like. I have personal preferences for how I use them. So I try to be careful in how much I offload to the LLM. So when I use it in my actual job, I don't simply put a small prompt in and then just hit, put it on auto mode and walk away for several hours as it's tinkering away. I give it very small, specific tasks to do. Then I go and look at the code that it's generated and discuss it with it to try to make sure that we're on the same page, which sounds like a bizarre thing to say, that me and the robot are on the same page, but it's confirming aspects of what I'm reading, so that I don't necessarily have to go through everything with as fine a tooth comb, but that I'm still making sure that I'm not just letting it build something completely on its own, that I'm walking it through the architecture that I would prefer, the way that I would like certain things to be done, the class structures, whatever sorts of mechanisms, what the API is going to be designed like, what the models for that transfer are going to be designed like, things like that. Database architecture in particular is something that I find you really need to walk it through, because it really likes to do let's say single entity retrieval document store, where it's trying to just use one key to look up an entire object, where it probably should be more relational for certain circumstances. So like there's certain things you got to handhold it through.
MongoDB style.
Yeah. Exactly.
I see. I knew NoSQL was a mistake. I didn't know this was why. But, oh my God.
No, it's just that there's certain things, like it's to the point where, for the most part, if you ask it to build a thing, you will get something that's functional. You rarely have something that completely crashes the moment you attempt run it. So you have very few instances where you're not going to get something close to what you asked for, functionality wise.
No, I follow.
At a base level.
It does suck at like I don't know, like ontology or taxonomizing things, which is fascinating. It could be a totally temporary thing, but yes, it does fail at organizing concepts very well. But talk to me in a year.
But
We'll see.
The
it's
tools.
good to know though, Gator, and I think our audience deserves you being straightforward about your usage.
Well, if anything, I owe everything to the audience. They pay a high amount for my weekly presence on here. Their hard-earned money.
Exactly, and it's you make sure they get their money's worth.
Exactly, absolutely. No, so the tools though are exceptionally good at giving you the flexibility that you want. So, for example, Alex, I'm sure that you use Claude Code still. And haven't necessarily fully switched over to a competitor or a different harness or whatever. But if you use,
You'll be surprised, Gator. You'll be surprised.
Well, if you use Claude Code through, let's say, Visual Studio Code, and you put it into what's called plan mode, where you're asking it to begin to plan out a build of something. You're giving it a set of instructions about what you want, and then it starts to do its thinking and then puts together a plan that you can read and review before it goes and executes it. The interfaces are nice where you can then highlight something in this plan and add a comment that can be a criticism at that like small individual level, so that it can then go back and take your comment on just a portion of its plan and then go and retool it. So you have the ability to, with care, see ideally everything that it's going to do, assuming that it executes the plan somewhat exactly as stated and doesn't go off and do its own thing. And that type of control is very, very convenient. And if you take care with it, you can do quite a bit. So I have absolutely no shame in using the tools, provided that they're giving me what I intend them to give me.
Well, that's not going to be Hank Green, in case you were in that audience. Just letting you know, Gator. I know I'm breaking.
Well, should we have a policy of an somewhat the anti Hank Green premise here?
Yeah,
so
my LLM usage policy is yes.
Well, so like instead of no portion of any script will be written, edited, or outlined by an LLM, we'll designate a small segment where the entirety is written, edited, and outlined by an LLM.
Some portion is always written and edited by.
Yeah, and so like the thesis of a video will always originate with a human, while the thesis was originated by an LLM, where the prompt is like, make something up now.
That's right. We hire interns to give them LLM prompts and see what they can do, and then an LLM grades their output.
Yeah.
Or degrades, as the case might be.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a segment that is the anti-Hank Green segment, where we do the opposite of his policy, just deliberately. Now,
I had to drop off, so I missed the first part of this, but are we talking about the Hank Green thing?
Yes, we are talking about the Hank Green thing, and we're about to talk about a additional fallout / derivative.
I see.
I
had an interesting observation that somebody pointed out to me yesterday, which is that there is almost no overlap whatsoever between the Hank Green crowd and the EA crowd, which are both anti-AI, but in
overlap in concepts or overlap in people.
Both, I think, for different. They both hate AI for different reasons, and
they're in very different molecules.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
this is another instantiation of the AI trilemma, as I like to call it, which is some people think it doesn't work and it's going to fail and it's a bubble and it's shit. Some people think it's real technology and it has to be taken very seriously. I think we broadly fall in this camp, and then there's another camp that says it works too well, it's going to kill us all, we're all dead. And so yes, we haven't seen the horseshoe theory version of this. It doesn't work at all, and also it works too well.
Well, the Hank Green situation, Alex, has spawned more conversations about AI policy. And Ars Technica has an article, Hank Green found the AI problem that YouTube labels can't catch. YouTube currently requires that content creators let viewers know when they use AI to meaningfully alter or generate photorealistic content. The policy draws some strange boundaries. It applies to AI-generated music, not photorealistic, but not to riding a unicorn through a fantastical world. This could be photorealistic, though not very plausible. YouTube then summarizes the policy in a different way. Realistic AI content and meaningful changes require disclosure, while non-realistic or minor edits don't. But for AI uses that require no disclosure can include everything from idea generation up through production assistance, like using generative AI tools to create or improve a video outline, script, thumbnail, title, or infographic. Creators are free to clone their own voices for voiceovers. They can use AI-generated or altered animation of a missile in a fully animated video. This results in some odd scenarios. A thrilling 10-second video that shows me riding my AI-generated steed through the horse-killing fart swamps of Selenius 4, no disclosure, even though the entire thing is AI-generated. But when I add an AI-crafted lute ballad about the grave dangers I face on those swamps, mandatory disclosure. The policy gap becomes more consequential when you imagine a 30-minute video attempting to sway people's views on geopolitics. AI could generate the premise, do the research, and write the outline. My own AI-cloned voice model could read the AI-drafted script. I could even use AI-generated missile animations. Must I disclose the rampant AI use that drove this entire project? Apparently not. But having an AI help in these ways imparts a certain feel and logic to projects, even if the final result is not fully AI generated. Humans approaching topics without AI might find sources through quite different paths, and they might have to read and process more material to get there, giving them a different kind of understanding. They might also note very different things as important, thus creating different outlines of the same material. They might pepper a script with jokes or digressions not usually suggested by an AI, and they might read a script aloud in a more natural way. This doesn't make the AI wrong, but it does mean that AI-assisted work will feel different. I was thinking about this because noted science YouTuber Hank Green recently apologized to fans for his over-reliance on AI. Green has made clear that my words are mine and that he writes his own scripts. But after fans complained about perceived AI influence on his work, Green looked at his process and concluded they might be right. Quote, I have been relying too heavily on AI as a research aid, Green wrote in a Reddit post on July 31st. It can be very useful for this task, giving me access to a lot of papers I didn't know really existed really fast. But I think that it has been to the detriment of my work because it's not given me the freedom to find all of my own ways into and around a topic. The problem, in Green's case, seems to have been the pressure to produce felt by so many content creators. He used that pressure as a fruitful spur to creation, but he also dealt with it by, quote, using AI to locate papers and other resources for learning about topics. This quest for efficiency eventually had him moving so fast that my own process isn't actually clear to me. Green concluded that making more things does not make me make better things, and he said that he still needs to come to terms with the fact that the level of dopamine I've been getting from interacting with LLMs was doing more and more and more and more is not healthy for me or good for the world. The result is likely to be fewer videos. YouTube's AI disclosure policy and Green's own wrestling with the technology illuminate different sides of the same question. When does AI support human effort, and when does it replace it in ways that matter? YouTube's concern is primarily about outright deception. Its policy requires disclosure when a video shows a real person appear to say or do something they didn't do, or a realistic scene that didn't actually occur. Noting AI use in these cases can be a hedge against the cruder forms of disinformation. But Green's self-critique is subtler. Far below this photorealistic layer of deception, extensive AI use can shape the very basis of creation, ideation, research, and outlining. That is not the same as saying that AI use is bad or that its results are inaccurate. It is to say, even if all AI outputs are correct and well crafted, they might still possess a style and geometry inherited from the machine now guiding the process. Turning too early or too easily to an AI may crowd out offbeat ideas. AI-assisted research may supply answers, but not domain mastery. And an AI-generated outline, whether for an essay or a YouTube video, may lock the mind into a predetermined track before it has the chance to wander and perhaps arrive somewhere more personal. Now, I think the AI generated policies are probably going to continue to be lackluster as the technology progresses, because there's going to be a point where knowing whether something is real does not necessarily only bow down to whether it was AI generated, because you are still going to have the ability for people to make, let's say, more traditional CGI that is photorealistic. So, for example, if you use the AI to generate a realistic video, or you use the AI to create a 3D scene that can render in a realistic fashion. So we have the UFO leaks, or not the leaks, but the UFO dumps coming out of the White House through war.gov now, right? And these videos, historically, a lot of them have been fakes. People doing, special trickery to try to convince people that what they have filmed is a alien object. The ability for something like Adobe After Effects or 3D programs like Maya or Blender. Blender is free, so that's easily accessible, to be able to produce special effects inside a video to still make things look more realistic is still possible. So if you do that by hand, or something helps you generate that, helps you, tweak the dials, let's say, inside of Blender to make a realistic looking fake of something, do you have to put on the label? Or if you do it by hand, do you have to put on the label because it wasn't AI generated? The concept is now violated where you're faking something, but the protection saying it's AI generated is circumvented. Like it's going to be a weird change of policy over time, because I don't think there's a good answer for that.
I think the problem Hank Green has is that Hank Green is very much sounding like an LLM. Like, nobody would doubt that this program here, not to toot our own horn, but I mean, even though we contain an imaginary creature, which is to say an alligator that is also the president of the United States.
How dare you, sir?
Unreasonable affinity for ducks. Just saying. Nobody would doubt that this is, fundamentally made by humans on the vibes level. Whereas Hank Green, I could generate you Hank Greens all day long, and you will be very hard pressed to figure out if they're an LLM or not. So I guess he needs an AI policy. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think if you reach the point where your audience doesn't really know if they're interacting with the aura of a real human or an automated mouth, you have an upstream problem. Let me put it that way.
Well, I don't know what, something like, so Hank Green, by and large, is just like a younger Bill Nye the Science Guy. He's a science popularizer. He's not someone who has, like, he's not someone with an advanced degree in a particular field, and he's educating inside of that field. He does the popular science stuff. He'll read articles out of the rest of the magazines like everyone else.
He'll go anywhere.
He'll go anywhere, and it, I'm sure that the things that he finds are actually genuinely interesting, but he's just going down, collecting some things and arranging a video on it, and he's not necessarily a specialist in anything, so we're not learning something from someone who has an expertise or a familiarity with the subject that is, communicating something personal about himself. He's assembling stuff that he thought it was interesting and he wanted to share with other people as an interesting conversation. So what is authenticity in that world where your job is to not know anything about the subject that you're talking about, go do research to assemble something so that you can put together a video so that you can present it to someone else? What is authenticity in that construct?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't. That feels like it's almost going back around to, like, you're not an expert, bro. To the degree that there's a real person and they have real interests and real positions that they're, feeling through their way in life. That feels to me like a thing that you could do, and it could still be, personal to you, even if you're not, like, a certified expert in said.
It's not that there's a lack of certified expert that is in my, I understand that why I might have sounded like that was my critique, but it was more that his job is not to be a person who also learns things and shares what he's just recently learned or studied or went down a rabbit hole on. It is that he is purposely looking for the next thing that people might want to watch that he can assemble. Right? It's,
and I see what you mean.
And so what is authenticity in that paradigm? Right? Like there's
I don't know. It's to the person, right? Some person might literally just go down the analytics and see what the search keywords are for what people want to watch and like try to fill that, right? And so be completely like, demand determined. And somebody else might be injecting their own vibe and stuff. And, I couldn't tell you in advance, but can I say something else that struck me with that article you read?
Sure.
Which was like, we're not saying it's wrong and we're not saying it's bad, but we're saying it's different than it otherwise might be because it was influenced by an LLM. And I was like, you could substitute Google for that, right? Like, we haven't gone to the library and searched for your papers. You used the search engine, and that could change the paths, and you might not make the same jokes and yada yada. It's like, okay, like, which again brings me to that original thing I was saying, that there is this pent up sort of, upset in some way that is trying to find a way to, like, trying to find the argument that makes it okay to be pissed off that people are using LLMs, and is not quite finding its shape yet. I'm sure they'll eventually figure something out that like it actually makes sense. But to say like, oh, it's taking you down different cognitive paths than you otherwise might have gone. It's like, as does anything, like if you bought a Dell computer instead of an Apple, like you might, I don't know, the keys you press might have different amount of resistance, and you might make a typo that takes you somewhere else. I don't know. What are we talking about here?
Well, I think in one respect, the choice of computer having a butterfly effect is slightly different than outsourcing the writing to an LLM in a way where you are decreasingly an active participant in the process, and the outputs of the LLM are what you're using, and that therefore you're passing off the LLM's voice as your voice, and now you are just sort of the parrot for the LLM, right? That I think that is a little bit more tangible of an aspect of their critique.
Sure.
I think.
But that whole article was explicitly not targeting that situation. It was saying even if you write your own scripts, and even if you edit them yourself, and even if it corrects errors that you would otherwise have made, and even if A, B, and C, and D, still it might just take you down different paths, and it might it's self-limiting itself to the butterfly effect critique.
Okay.
Which, makes you say like, what are we even talking about, guys? Like, what is this?
Okay. Well, Alex, we're going to move on to some other topics here today, because we got some really dumb ones to go through coming up.
Okay.
But last week I said that we've covered flock here and there, but we haven't really started to cover a lot of it
per se. Yes.
And that I was disappointed that nobody has I've never heard the expression "meet the flockers," and that was a low-hanging fruit there. So now we are going to have sections called Meet the Flockers, where we accumulate any of the flock stories for a given week, just to see what people are getting on about. In general, I'm going to be anti-flock in a sense, where the ability to easily prop up so many cameras all over in public, so that now you have almost no expectation of privacy in public, which is, I understand that the public is obviously the inverse of private, but there is a degree to which if you are alone in on a sidewalk, you do expect that looking around, you are alone and not being followed by hundreds of cameras with people watching you in some remote location. There is a way in which your expectations of not being surrounded by people watching you, because there's no one around watching you literally, can be betrayed. And I think that that's, having a, major global camera, video, audio recordings state is not necessarily a good trend, because the violations do occur. So I'm going to be generally less enthusiastic about the flock situation, but that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to promote the rebels going up and tearing them down everywhere as an act of defiance. But so here's some stories this week from Flock. Flock pitched a plan to turn Uber and Lyft drivers into roaming surveillance vehicles. Flock planned to use dash cams installed in hundreds of thousands of Uber, Lyft, and delivery drivers' vehicles to scan license plates those drivers traveled past, essentially turning Uber and Lyft drivers into roaming surveillance vehicles, according to a Flock presentation shared with 404 Media. The document provides more details on Flock's planned partnership with Nexar, a popular dashcam company. 404 Media first revealed the intended partnership last August, when multiple sources provided information on the plan. The presentation shows Flock was actively pitching this partnership and its use of Uber and Lyft drivers to potential customers right around the time 404 Media reported on it. Flock told 404 Media in an email it never executed the partnership with Nexar. But the presentation still shows Flock's ambitious plan to conscript rideshare and delivery drivers to collect license plate data for its network. It's not clear whether Uber or Lyft or drivers working for those apps would have been aware of the data collection. Hundreds of commercial businesses and HOAs in Georgia are part of the network. The presentation, written by Flock to present to the Georgia Office of the Attorney General last August, reads, plus Nexar partnership, which includes 350K Uber and Lyft and other delivery service vehicles. Jason Hunyar of Dunwoody, Georgia, resident who obtained the presentation through a public records request, shared the document with 404 Media. Flock's automatic license plate reader cameras are usually stationary cameras installed on tall poles that constantly scan the license plate, color, make, and brand of every vehicle that drives past. The Nexar partnership would have made those data collection efforts mobile. Axon, the law enforcement contracting giant that also sells ALPR cameras, sells some of its cameras to be installed in police officers' roaming cars. Vigilant Solutions and the Digital Recognition Network, two ALPR companies now owned by Motorola, perform similar license plate data collection through cameras and vehicles belonging to repossession agencies. Nexar sells various different models of dash cams, providing front, cabin, and rear views, and can already provide clear license plate capture with full HD video, according to its website. Nexar markets the cameras to rideshare drivers and also commuters, long-distance drivers, and casual drivers. In September, 404 Media reported that a hacker broke into Nexar and accessed the database of terabytes of video recordings taken by customers' cameras. Those included footage of people driving around sensitive Department of Defense locations. Flock has explored obtaining other unusual datasets too. Last May, 404 Media reported Flock was building a massive people lookup tool that would use hacked data to jump from LPR to person, according to leaked audio. Flock scrapped those plans after 404 Media's coverage and internal pressure. Neither Uber nor Lyft responded to a request for comment, neither did Nexar. In May, 404 Media reported a company called Bus Patrol that has cameras installed in tens of thousands of school buses plans to turn those cameras into ALPRs and give access to the data to law enforcement. Now, again, I'm going to generally be, against a lot of this because I do not like surveillance states in general, and I'm not very thrilled with having everything being monitored at all times. And even if the supposed collection of a subset of data is what is being reported, you actually generally need far more data to actually be recovered and collected in order to do that small subset of reporting, which means that it's only a matter of time before that data is accessed against its original
other
intent.
Purposes.
Yes. But hey, we already got it, so why not?
Homicides, for instance. Yeah.
So, Alex, any thoughts on that?
Well, look, this all reminds me of the justification that Peter Thiel had produced for explaining, why, as a libertarian, he founded Palantir.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard this?
I have not.
So you know that Peter Thiel is kind of known as a sort of libertarian leaning sort of person, right? And billionaire, and
mm-hmm.
also the guy who started Palantir. So, you know, he's been asked the question of like, how do you explain to yourself, how did you find yourself doing this? And, you know, I mean, Peter Thiel is often, I've said, like, he's often misunderstood and sort of can tell an interesting story. But this particular one had me pretty baffled, which he was basically saying, look, after 9/11, you know, they passed the Patriot Act, where they took away a lot of our civil liberties. And we were worried that if another sort of big terrorist attack were to happen, that they would take away more of our liberties. So we thought, why not make a technology that helped the government do more with the, you know, within the legal envelope that they are in already, so that they don't have to expand the legal envelope that, you know, they kind of have, and therefore defend in effect, you know, civil rights by, you know, giving the government the ability to sort of more intensively mine the information they already have rather than installing a full-blown surveillance society. Is that understandable as a concept, what I just said?
I track it. Yes,
arse? Yes. Okay. So you might notice that it has a pretty severe flaw in that if you give them all the power they dream in the world by data mining the stuff they already collect, you haven't really won per se. Not mandating that you tell them more about yourself because they can figure it out already.
Right.
I don't, you know, it's kind of hard to, and this is what I feel about this block thing, which is like, okay, I guess it's legal and it's not technically surveillance, except you're surveilling everybody. And I guess you're not expanding, you know, like you said, right? It's not, you know, each individual micro operation is not per se a problem. Like we've had surveillance cameras before. You thought you were alone, but weren't. And, you know, none of this is novel per se, except in that quantity has a quality all of its own, right? Like that's ultimately what it comes down to, which is that it's one thing that a store has a surveillance camera that is only correlated with the store's own prior surveillance feeds. And it's different when all the surveillance cameras are now working together to know 24/7 where you are and where you've been and can nail down your movements, you know, to a pretty fine-grained degree. And maybe, who knows, maybe they can then correlate over multiple days and find your pattern of life, right? And and know where you will be when they want to get you or whatever. You're like, no, whoa. I thought we were just trying to defend, you know, a random store from robbery, not that we are now keeping a track of me 24/7 and in advance predictably as well. You know, there's like, I realize that there's no new capability being used on the collection endpoint per se, but that is a completely different thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
well, Alex, speaking of which here, Alex, cops used Flock to track a man across state lines to create pretext to search his car for weed. Police in Wisconsin used Flock to determine that a man travels to Michigan frequently, where marijuana is legal, then back to Wisconsin, where it is illegal. They then used his travel across state lines as tracked by Flock as part of the probable cause justification to search his car for weed. He was eventually arrested on marijuana possession charges, according to court records reviewed by 404 Media. The searches came to light in a Wisconsin criminal complaint against Edward Abrams Phillips, who was wanted for bail jumping on domestic violence charges. But the criminal complaint makes clear that beyond the bail jumping and domestic violence charges, police specifically studied Abrams Phillips' interstate travel to create the pretext for searching his car for marijuana. The bail jumping charge was dismissed. Abrams Phillips was found guilty only of weed possession in the case, according to court records. The complaint explains that Abrams Phillips was tracked via Flock's network over the course of the day to determine that he drove from Wisconsin to Michigan, quote, known source state for marijuana as it is legal there, the complaint states, adding that previous Flock hits indicated that he travels to Michigan frequently. Police note that using Flock, they were able to track Abrams Phillips driving from Wisconsin to Michigan, then back to Wisconsin over the course of several hours, where he was pulled over and arrested. The Flock searches and arrests happened in April of 2025. Quote, the vehicle was observed hitting Flock on several occasions to include 41 northbound from Brown Road, 41 northbound and County Line Marionette and 41 on Bridge Street going to Michigan. Based on prior flock hits, the vehicle travels from Michigan frequently, which is a known source state for marijuana as it is legal there, the charge document notes. Around 3:56 p.m., the vehicle was seen on Flock heading southbound on Interstate 41 towards Green Bay. Deputies made a coordinated effort to intercept the vehicle on 41 from Brown Road. Deputy Kowalski initiated a traffic stop on the vehicle as the driver matched the description of Edward. After pulling him over, the complaint states that police detected the odor of what he knew to be raw marijuana coming from inside the vehicle. The case is an example of flock cameras being used to arrest a wanted alleged criminal suspected of committing a violent crime, but it's also an example of police surveillance overreach, in that the cameras were specifically used to create a pretext to tack on additional petty crimes based primarily on where a person's vehicle had traveled. There is a long history of surveillance technology being used in problematic ways, seemingly unsympathetic cases, which eventually creates a slippery slope where the technology can be used against the masses or enforced against very minor crimes. It is not difficult to imagine police in one state using Flock to track a resident of their state cross state lines to, for example, obtain an abortion that is legal in one state but not in another. Last year, 404 Media reported on police in Texas who searched more than 80,000 cameras across Flock's nationwide network for a woman who had self-administered abortions. The case is also particularly concerning considering that Flock cameras have popped up outside of weed dispensaries in Michigan. The Jars Cannabis Dispensary in Madison Heights, Michigan, went viral this week for putting a no flock zone sign in front of a Flock camera in the dispensary's parking lot. We share our community's concerns about increased surveillance, which is why we placed the no flock zone sign in front of the camera to block its ability to record, the dispensary said in a public statement. Jars does not control the camera or have access to any of the data it collects. After we installed our no flock zone sign, the city issued a demand letter warning of sanctions if we did not remove it within 48 hours. But that flock camera exists specifically to monitor the license plates of people who come and go to the dispensary. It was required by Madison Heights as one of the conditions for giving a dispensary license to Jars. The dispensary must place a Flock license plate scanning camera system at the entrance of the customer parking lot prior to commencement of retail sales, and will give the Madison Heights Police Department unhindered live access to the Flock camera footage, and any and all data which must remain operational at all times. Flock audit reports covering searches done by the Brown County, Wisconsin Sheriff's Department from April 26, 2025 show that the department used Flock dozens of times that day, often searching thousands of Flock's cameras at a time. Tuesday, Flock executives tweeted video examples of their camera being used to rescue abducted children in what appears to be a new marketing strategy for the company. Every child in this video is home tonight because Flock gave officers the right information at the right second. Flock's chief strategy officer, Raul Sadu, tweeted, "That's the mission. That's the whole company. I wouldn't trade that for anything." So there you go, Alex. They're already using it to try to infer that someone went to a state where the marijuanas were and pull them over.
I don't think I've ever been validated within seconds uttering a take, but yeah, there you have it.
Well, that's my job. That's what I'm here for, Alex. I set you up only to validate you. I will never invalidate you. Now we have one more Flock story here, I believe.
Tonight, 6 former employees with Savannah Police Department are facing a criminal investigation for allegedly misusing a high-tech surveillance camera system used for tracking license plates. The technology has been hit with vandalism, lawsuits, and public protests in recent months, but supporters say it's vital to solving crimes. Here's ABC's Olivia Rubin.
Tonight, 6 former Savannah Police Department employees are now under criminal investigation. They were recently fired for allegedly misusing these controversial surveillance cameras made by the company Flock.
Totally honest, I'm disappointed. I'm pissed off about it.
The high-tech, AI-powered cameras read license plates and store that data for police departments to use. Over 120,000 now deployed nationwide. But backlash growing amid reports of misuse. Dozens of officers now charged or accused of using the technology inappropriately, including stalking. According to the Washington Post, this North Carolina police officer arrested for allegedly using it to track her boyfriend's ex-wife.
That's what bothers me the most, that the people that use this stuff for personal gain.
Critics also calling these cameras an invasion of privacy. Some are being vandalized in acts of protest. In Texas, this camera cut in half. And in Minnesota, a man posting these videos of himself covering the cameras with tape. But Flock says their cameras help law enforcement stop crimes, and some agree.
They have assisted our officers in solving numerous crimes.
That power on display after the Brown University shooting. The technology helping track down the gunman who went on the run after opening fire, killing 2 students and injuring 9 others.
And Rachel, Flock saying criminal acts like vandalism have no place here, even as people continue to voice their opinions in this ever-growing debate about individual privacy versus public safety. Rachel.
Okay, Olivia, thank you.
So there you go, Alex, keeping tabs on your ex-husband's girlfriend through Flock cameras. That's a no-no usage. Which is good to know. It's a no-no usage, which is good to know that it's a no-no usage. They frown upon that around here, but
if it weren't for Flock, who knows what she would have done to track her ex-husband's girlfriend's position?
She might have had to get more creative. Exactly. Now, there's a
crime in more ways than one.
There's a sort of statement that was echoed in there, as the proponents of Flock or the supporters of Flock, and it's that without this, the cops would have a harder time, or that this is needed in order to do certain things. And throughout I don't know if you're aware of this, Alex, but the human race has been around for more than 50 years, and we've had societies for somewhat.
I have no personal experience with this fact that you keep.
All right. Well, okay. Well, according to these like little pieces of paper that are bundled together,
handed over to us by our elders. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Whatever that is, it sounds like that these people and these societies have been around for a decent amount of time, and that the Flock cameras are a relatively new thing that have been created in the history of human events by comparison. And so the idea that, we couldn't do this without the Flock cameras sort of paints the picture in my mind that, let's say in like the 1950s, no crimes got solved. And that there was just nothing.
At this point, let's just take down the police entirely and just replace them with Flock. Why are we paying the police unions for anything?
Now listen, Alex, I think we can do even better than Flock if we just place cameras and audio recording equipment in everyone's home. We'll be able to know when they're committing a crime right then and there, and we won't have to deal with trying to figure it out. We'll just automatically know. And think about how safe people will be if we just automatically know that someone's up to no good.
I mean, the Stasi really this is older than 50 years, so that passes your test, Gator.
I just the people who say yes, the technology is convenient. All convenient technology will at some point help someone solve a crime that would have been more difficult to solve absent that technology or data collection. Absolutely, that's always true. But
a lot of this stuff is subpoenaable, right? Like you could subpoena cell phone location and stuff, which is like probably better than Flock, I guess. But the fact that this is just like they can just go search it all willy-nilly, that seems like the really bad part. If it was Flock had to be subpoenaed to get this data, I'd feel kind of better about it.
See, that right. Part comes.
There's no judicial gate to get.
Well, that part comes from somewhat of a navigation of the Fourth Amendment, right? So you have the right to be secure in your person and your effects, which normally is why
know where they are.
Well, that protects you somewhat completely, so to speak, inside of your home, where they need to have a search warrant in order to enter your home to get your effects. And in some circumstances, they need a search warrant to expand that concept to things that are not your home, like companies that you do business with. So, for example, if they want to search your Google account and your Google Drives, they need a search warrant specifically itemizing what they are looking for. So those are types of protections. A cell phone carrier is going to be along those lines of an extension of the Fourth Amendment, saying that searching for those things inside of your whereabouts with a cell phone tower is part of your data that is not necessarily public. But if they prop up cameras, that is a public area that you are not under a Fourth Amendment protection, except in the narrow circumstance of your car, which they might be able to get past with probable cause to search your car. But typically, if they don't have the probable cause spark, they need that search warrant to enter your car to be able to search it. But the outside of your car, where your license plate isn't covered by that protection. So they get to film, hypothetically, anything they want and collect all the outside data that they want, because it's in some ways just identical to an officer being there themselves as the arguments go. It's no different than the cop being at that location physically and observing the same things.
Yeah, I guess that's a reasonable argument. I guess I wonder if the founding fathers had it in mind that you would have an officer on every street corner reporting centrally all the time.
That's exactly what the Constitution predicts. What are you talking? That's why they had no national army and a very weak federal government, because they were expecting a police officer in every corner, of course.
Yeah, there was a lot of things along the way of predicting sort of that, but the problem is that you have these easy to make arguments that are like, well, without this piece of technology, a particular horrific thing that happened wouldn't have been able to been solved. The perpetrators wouldn't have been able to be put to justice, or this, as the kidnapped child examples go, we wouldn't have found this particular kidnapped child at this specific point in time because it would have been more difficult having to use other resources.
Yeah, I guess now that's the part that I object to. Like, I guess, the subpoena gate is also, it's paperwork you got to do. But if there's actually a kidnapped child, I'm assuming you can get that paperwork. So they're now just basically being lazy and taking the lazy option to avoid having to do the paperwork to do this. Like, claiming that there's just no other way we could have done this is ridiculous.
That's
Donald J. Trump
a good argument.
Has requested to speak, and he's here early today. So, Donald J. Trump, how are you? And go ahead and ask your questions, raise your comments, etc. Oh no,
Alex, doing well. So, I was just going to say, as far as I know, the flock thing cuts both ways. So, if your city officially has flock cameras, you can submit FOIAs to get all the recordings of all police movement, your chief of police's movement, any policeman who takes their vehicle home, you can track that. Any city manager who's using a city vehicle, you can track them. Any city council member who's on the clock can be tracked. So you can basically just 100% take all their movements and then just post it on a website. So, I mean, if you want flock to go away quick for whatever city you're in, just start doing that and posting all that information online.
FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act law. Now, Donald J. Trump, I'm going to have to say that I believe you that exists somewhere. However, the federal Freedom of Information Act laws do not apply to state governments. And so each municipality is going to be affected by its own state FOIA-like law. So there may be some states where what you're saying is absolutely true, but I would bet that it's not ubiquitous, that you can't necessarily just request.
If it has to do with local laws, I bet you it will change extra pronto.
But, oh no, I'm with that. But I am like, there are, what do you call it? You're right. It 100% depends on state constitutions. But now, granted, I haven't lived in every state. But states I have lived in, if you want information on government officials or something, usually there's an equivalent FOIA system to go through, and it will piss them off because it gets to them.
Well, those I've had an extensive relationship with those state by state FOIA laws in the last few years. Have you ever heard of the website Muckrock, sir?
now.
Muckrock is a service that you can pay just a nominal fee to and have access to submit FOIA requests to pretty much any municipal service across the country that you want. So sheriff's departments in any particular county, whatever the government service is, you can submit them and they will actually help be the intermediary to some degree, so that if there is an escalation process, they'll help you escalate. Because each one of these departments that has, each state that has a FOIA law, a FOIA-like law, also does not have a universal FOIA process. So each of the, the sheriff's department might have a specific place on their website or a mailing address where you have to submit there. So it winds up being infinitely complex if you're trying to do, a 50 state look around. You actually have to understand each state's nuances of how you're supposed to submit them. But Muckrock is a service that you can use to help facilitate that across all 50 states with all sorts of different municipalities and different sectors of those local governments to try to facilitate your FOIA requests. So there's Dr. RollerGator's The More You Know for today.
Muckrock. Oh, thanks for the heads up. See, unfortunately, I live in a very small area with with sparsely populated areas. So if someone does it, I'll just go down to the bar and yell at Tim and ask him why he's doing this.
All right. Okay. Well, Alex, unless you have any additional thoughts on the flock situation, we'll continue to throw the news into the rotation, not necessarily as a primary focus, but
my one last comment is that thing where it says but for this we couldn't have done that or whatever, right? If you boil it down, it basically says increasing our capabilities increases our capabilities, and it's yes, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Right. It doesn't really, right. You know what I mean? It's okay, now that we can do more things, It's yes, that's kind of the problem because we don't assume that you're going to do the right thing automatically. I don't know if you're aware of how the Constitution works, but the whole thing about due process is because we don't assume just because you're a police officer, you're a good person, and you're going to use any capability you have in the best possible way. Just, a novel concept, I know, but that's how it works.
Yeah.
It sort of reminds me of the NSA phone tap metadata thing where the federal judge made them reveal all the things that they said that they got with it. And he found 0 crimes that they could not have caught through or they didn't catch through other means.
Right. Even worse.
All right. Moving on before we get to a couple dumber topics. Alex, there was a controversy that sort of erupted in the last 2 weeks involving a professor who was given great accolades, who rose to the top of his profession in academia and has been reportedly outed as a complete and total fraud. I don't know if you've heard this story this week.
Have I heard about
this is from The Guardian. The rise and fall of Jason Arday, a full rundown of the questions being asked. The rise and fall of Professor Jason Arday has been one of the most dramatic in the history of British academia. Diagnosed as autistic as a child, he says he was nonverbal until he was 11 and only learned to read and write at the age of 18. Less than 20 years later, he was appointed youngest black professor in Cambridge University's history. His resignation on Wednesday followed 2 weeks of intense scrutiny. He has been accused of plagiarism in his academic work, and questions have been raised about a long line of claims in his backstory, from endurance running, footballing exploits, and charity fundraising to academic positions, qualifications, and authorship. Here is a rundown of the questions being asked. Plagiarism. Arday first faced allegations that he plagiarized parts of his PhD thesis and other academic research late last year. He has rejected the claims. The Telegraph reported that analysis has found more than 100 passages of his PhD were similar to another thesis by Paula Zwadyak-Myers, a student at Brunel University of London, published 6 years previously. An earlier investigation by Liverpool John Moores University, which awarded his PhD in 2015, did not uphold the charges of plagiarism, but said they were probably caused by honest and reasonable error. Arday told The Guardian last week, quote, "There have been multiple thorough investigations across several institutions as a result of the allegations and immense scrutiny, including with an academic misconduct panel who concluded that there was no plagiarism or academic misconduct. There have been growing calls from other academics to re-examine his PhD. Arday also faced claims that some of his more recently published work is flawed. The Times published analysis on Wednesday that found some of his research contained impossible evidence and was littered with inconsistencies. 2 corrections have previously been made to papers he released in 2018. Arday has academic posts and achievements. Arday has claimed to have held a number of prestigious visiting fellowships and professorships at other universities. The website for Jesus College, where Arday was a fellow, stated that he had been a visiting professor at the Ohio State University in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and the University of Glasgow in the School of Education. Both universities denied this. The biography also stated that Arday was still an honorary professor at Durham University in the Department of Sociology, where he had previously worked. The university told the Daily Mail that he no longer held any role at the institution. Arday has also claimed to have completed a master's in psychodynamic practices at Birkbeck, University of London, after Awards became a fully qualified counselor, which gave him a, quote, rich understanding of mental health. However, when The Guardian contacted Birkbeck, the university said it had not been able to find records of a student named Jason Arday having studied there. Arday has claimed to have published a book called Being Young, Black and Male, challenging the dominant discourse with Palgrave Macmillan. The publisher subsequently confirmed that it took a proposal from Arday, but the book was never published. Sports. Arday claims in his book to have run 30 marathons in 35 days to raise money for charity in 2012. When Arday met the tennis star Andy Murray, he told him he had an epileptic seizure during one of the marathons and fractured his leg. Despite that incident, Arday claimed to have run 9 more marathons to complete the challenge. Doctors have told The Guardian that running 9 marathons with a hairline fracture and a fibula would be incredibly painful, though technically not impossible. In his forthcoming memoir, Arday says he completed the distance by taking painkillers, and despite his right leg swelling to twice its normal size, he said in 2012 interview that he had used ice baths to ease the pain between his runs. Now, Alex, pause for a moment. Bear with me because I am not a marathon runner, but are marathons specifically not 26 miles long?
I believe so. It's the distance between Marathon and Athens.
So 26 miles in, every day for 30 versions of 26 miles in 35 days does not really even seem to be a plausible thing for,
look, Gator, I think we are looking past here a very easy way to get past this whole controversy, and maybe Jason can clear his name. And all he'd need to do is just repeat the challenge. Presumably this time he might not even fracture his leg. Maybe we can live stream it. Maybe we can even raise money for charity while he does it. And if he can complete 30 marathons in 35 days, then we'll just declare him innocent of everything. What do you think?
Well, he also claimed to public events to have run 600 miles in 6 days.
That's right.
An achievement that would be
marathon runners who have done incredible things. Apparently, Ian Carroll is one of them, by the way, who do much, much longer distances than just a marathon. So, the endurance of the human body is quite something when you get to people who do that sort of thing. I think it was a Greek Australian. I think his last name was Kouros, who has done some of the craziest ultramarathon stunts you can imagine. But for example, running the distance from Athens to Sparta, which is 300 miles or just insane shit. That is just it just breaks your understanding of reality. But I'm just gonna say, I think Jason Arday is probably not one of these people.
Oh, okay. You're suspicious of the claims. Okay, well, he also claimed the public events to a
little bit suspicious, if not because he also apparently had locked-in syndrome and learned to read at age 18, and also was what was it? He was twice threatened with a knife, but didn't call the police. But then he called the police on the people who were asking him about his PhD thesis and the plagiarism, and there's just so much about this guy that yes, I think I'm just gonna press the disbelieve button for some reason.
Let's see if some of the other claims sound pass the smell test for you. He claimed to public events to have run 600 miles in 6 days, an achievement that would make him one of the world's most gifted endurance runners. The first woman to achieve that feat, Megan Eckhart, only managed it last year. The men's record is 650
I thought
miles.
You were going to say he was the first woman to achieve that achievement, which
no. But
go ahead.
There were two gentlemen who walked 500 miles and then walked 500 more to be a man who walks 1,000 miles and fall down at someone's door. So I think that, he's
with a hairline fracture, even.
He said because of the cumulative wear and tear of training from his previous running challenges, he had put rest days in between the running days just to finish the 600-mile challenge, which was actually completed over a 12-day period. Questions have also been raised about Arday's claims in 2024 to have played for Crystal Palace as an under 18. He told the Talking Matters podcast he spent a handful of years at the club before going on to play semi-professional football for 12 years. Crystal Palace said it did not have records dating back to the late 1990s and early 2000s when Arday would have been on its books. It has been reported that Arday did play for Lewisham Borough in the Southern Counties East Division 1, which is near the bottom of the non-league pyramid. Charitable work. As well as his endurance running claims, Arday has said he has completed other charitable work over the past 2 decades. He has claimed in media interviews to have raised £5 million for charities over a 20-year period. Sometimes his figure has risen to £5.5 million. As his critics online have pointed out, $5 million raised for charity would be a staggering amount for someone who is not famous. In 2012, Arday said he hoped to raise £250,000 by the time he was 50. When asked if the $5 million figure was accurate, Arday told The Guardian the money had been raised with the help of, quote, many fundraising collectives over a 2-decade period. He also said that he is part of a 100-person syndicate. When asked to identify other people who took part in these efforts, Arday said that he had signed NDAs preventing him from disclosing the information. Rats. I would tell you, but it's an NDA, this darn NDA. Arday claimed to have visited South America and West Africa to install water points with the charity WaterAid. The charity said that out of respect for the people we work with, it never sent its volunteers abroad. WaterAid added that it doesn't encourage or facilitate self-funded visits either. In Arday's memoir, he mentions going to Brazil to install a water well, but does not mention WaterAid. Intimidation. Arday has undoubtedly been a victim of racist abuse. Cambridge has previously said it was forced to screen the academic's emails. In a letter to the government minister, Jacques Smith, in July 2025, which outlined Arday's experiences, he claimed to have been threatened with a knife, physically assaulted, and spat on, had rape and death threats being made to him and his family, bananas and bullets being posted to him via the university campus, and corrosive substances and mutilated animals sent to his family home. In a subsequent interview with The Guardian, Arday claimed to have been confronted at his facility building on 2 separate occasions by a masked man who threatened to harm him if he did not resign, and evaded detection both times. On the second occasion, Arday said the intruder had produced a knife and threatened him with it. The intruder was not picked up by CCTV on either occasion, and no one in the facility reported seeing anyone suspicious. Arday did not report either intrusion at the time, telling The Guardian that after the second incident, he continued his working day. He did not inform colleagues that a masked man with a knife was in the faculty building. Arday confirmed in an interview with The Guardian that the, quote, mutilated animal sent to his family home mentioned in the open letter was a severed pig's head delivered to his parents' home address in South London. In a subsequent interview, he claimed the police investigated, checked with butchers in South London if they had sold a pig, and eventually finding one that had sold a whole hog on the morning the head was left outside the family home. When The Guardian checked those details with the local butchers, they said no police officer had asked about a pig. When the details Arday gave about the pig's head investigation were checked by London's Metropolitan Police, The Guardian were told that they were categorically incorrect and no investigation had taken place. Arday reported a journalist investigating claims against him to the police. Jack Grove, a reporter at Times Higher Education, approached Arday with a 63-page report detailing alleged plagiarism. In a piece for publication, Grove wrote that he submitted only 3 polite emails but received in response a threatening letter from Arday's solicitors. 4 months later, he was phoned by a Metropolitan Police officer to say they were closing the complaint against him, a complaint he did not know had been made. Quote, were my inquiries grounds for a criminal complaint? That was hugely troubling to me as a reporter who specializes in minimizing issues of research integrity and ethics, Grove wrote. So yes, this is quite a wild quite a wild story. The guy's entire CV is apparently fabricated. So I guess, if you're already...
There's a way out for Arte
All right.
here.
Okay.
All
right.
He can reinvent himself as an art project, so to speak, where he was doing increasingly insane things in the hopes of being found out and taking down the DEI establishment with him in order to help, restore academic integrity in Britain. I think that's, he could, and then he could actually take credit for what he's inevitably going to be doing.
Well, there's something I've been involved in for several years now that has some parallels, although the person doing it has a higher track record. What they do is they start projects, and they might register a company, even get some financing and rent a building to start their operations. Use their feminine status to get glowing local press coverage as a female empowerment example, and businesswoman. They conduct a series of fraudulent activities and basically steal from everyone involved in their company, and then leave. They have a trail of actual businesses after repeating this process several times, where they seem to any new prospective marks as a legitimate business person with a long history of running businesses in many different fields. Because the glowing press coverage they get when they first start it is not followed up by the same news outlets with the accusations of fraud and calamities. Yes. So they get to accumulate an impressive CV through this behavior, even though largely it's nothing but lies. That is something that Mr. Arte did not do, apparently.
Well, this is actually very similar to Arte, because apparently there's a history of him moving across different academic departments and whatever before he locked himself into Cambridge. And in effect, it's a kind of the suspicion is that it's a similar pattern where as suspicions were starting to be raised, he would go somewhere else, et cetera, creating a pattern of him sort of moving up, but in fact, he was more like failing up or something along those lines. So not maybe not by design the same kind of thing, but not necessarily that as different as you might imagine.
Yeah. Well, you're right. But I have the parallel sort of story that hopefully someday I'll get to tell in full, because it's amazing.
I mean, dude, at this point, it's just friggin'
no. Got my reasons. So now, Alex, we're going to move on to the follow-up of our Mamdani grocery stores discussion, because I promised that I would look up the RFP. Yes. I looked up the RFP. I sent you the RFP, and we'll discuss what we found a little bit. So last week, we played Mamdani's grocery store announcement, where they're promising that a bundle of goods, the important bundle of goods that people rely on in life, are going to be a consistent 30% discount. And I sort of went into a little bit of a long diatribe / rant about how I don't believe that they have, actually thought this through too well, and that there's a myriad of problems that immediately come to mind when you try to make some sort of promise. Alex pointed out that another person on the staff that at that same press conference said that they were going to be checking IDs as part of the way that they hopefully would be able to prevent certain things like arbitrage, which is where you buy something that's subsidized in one location and go to another location. I guess it doesn't have to be subsidized, but you try to make profit off of a price difference separated by geography. So you if these items are 30% off guaranteed at this store, you could buy them up, travel just a little bit outside the area, and sell them for, let's say, 15% off, where you make 15% profit automatically. That type of process would need to be prevented against, because the idea is that you're selling these goods to people who legitimately need that discount in order to make ends meet. So Alex had pointed out that they said that they were going to check IDs, which is my understanding since announcing that, they got some pushback on and made it a little bit weaker of a claim, where now it's supposedly just going to be a like frequent buyer card, with your name attached or something, where you might get further discounts or something, where, the same thing regular grocery stores do, where they track your purchases through a specific card, and you can get like discounts on gas or something after accumulating certain numbers of points. But now, when reading these RFP, Alex, I don't know if you have exactly the same sorts of thoughts that I do, but what were your thoughts reading the sections of the RFP that you read? And we'll go through some of the items here.
Well, to me, the joke here is that they are not even sort of confident in their ability to run a grocery store per se. What they're hoping is that the free market will deliver to them an operator that can make their crazy promises come true.
Yes.
It's amazing.
So for those who aren't familiar, an RFP stands for request for proposal. And basically what you're doing is you're saying, hey, we want to do this thing, and we're soliciting people to write proposals, companies who are in the sector or whatnot, write proposals for us to review that are in line with the goals that we are specifying in this RFP, this request for a proposal. So we're going to take open submissions for proposals from companies who want to say that they can do this work. And that's what an RFP is, just in case you weren't familiar. Now, the RFP, I've taken a couple excerpts from, because I think it paints the entire picture of what the scenario is. And I'm going to point out after reading some of this that what I find particularly hilarious. So here's the job quality and community hiring section of the RFP. Operators must collaborate with the NYEDC to finalize the expected wages, benefit packages, labor practices, and working conditions required to ensure that all jobs at NYC grocery stores meet the goals of this RFP by providing workers with the best-in-class compensation packages for full and part-time workers, inclusive of both wages and benefits, and a safe and dignified work experience. At a minimum, the operators must commit to a labor peace agreement at each site should a labor organization communicate intent to organize any group of workers on the site, regardless of that site's status under some section of the administrative code. Prioritize hiring full-time employees, offer reliable schedules to part-time employees, and if 20 or more employees comply with fair work practices set forth in some code section. Provide employees with best-in-class wages. Provide employees with access to high-quality and affordable health insurance. Provide employees with best-in-class benefits. Provide employees with safety training, which shall include training on safe equipment operation and conflict de-escalation. Take all appropriate steps to ensure that the NYC grocery sites are safe working environments. So that's what they're sort of demanding, that this proposal, these proposals that they're accumulating, actually say how they're going to achieve this. So this is something that they have to hit. They have to hit these best-in-class wages, access to high quality and affordable healthcare. Now, obviously, this goes pretty high on the costs of running the operation, right? The actual daily monthly costs of running the operation. Now, the next section here, NYEDC intends for the operators to sell SKUs with each core basket category at prices that are on average 30% below retail prices. NYEDC seeks to collaborate with the operator to achieve this discount while minimizing the need for NYEDC's financial support beyond capital fit out and payment of rent and property taxes. So the first thing that comes to mind when in my rant last week as I'm hearing this is that this is going to require incredible amounts of subsidies. You can't just blanket say that you're going to make something 30% cheaper without subsidizing it. There isn't just 30% of margin coming on these products that you can just say, okay, we're not going to take the margin on, we're going to break even. That just doesn't exist in this scenario. And so you're going to have to wind up subsidizing it. Now, in this RFP, they are saying that they are going to provide financial support. Basically, they're going to provide the costs to construct the grocery store and build it out. So whoever wins this proposal, part of what they are getting is that the grocery store will be built for them by the city. So that's something that's defraying the cost of whoever's going to operate it. and that they are going to have the rent and property taxes paid by the city. Now, after the first capital expense of building the grocery store, which is a very fixed cost because you're only going to build it once, the rent and property taxes are the ongoing. So once the amount of money this operator saves by having the building and infrastructure built for them, they're only going to have whatever the total rent and property taxes are as a source of defraying the cost of this bundle that they're keeping below 30%. Now, the government, the New York City government, is putting pressure on the proposal writers to sort of try to meet a proposal that promises the government that they won't need much more in the way of subsidy. So, Alex, what I'm getting, and tell me if you have a different opinion here, is that what you're going to wind up is having all sorts of proposals that get pushed out that try to say that they can minimize the need for additional financial support, but that once it's actually enacted, there is no way that they're going to get past needing additional support, because I cannot see rent and property taxes being equal to 30% perpetual discounts on food like that.
Look, I have a proposal for them.
Okay, all right.
There is this a benchmark out showing how AI can run a coffee shop. I believe they have 2 actual coffee shops. One, I think in San Francisco, and the other one's in Stockholm. So we could put it all together and just not have employees per se, have an AI run the shop, and maybe we can minimize.
Alex. Now, I guess you would say that there's a loophole in that you would provide employees with best in class wages, but if you don't have employees, you're
each and every employee that we accidentally happen to hire for some reason that we, slipped our attention with the best of everything.
So we have the employees, the employee requirements, right, which are pretty stiff, right? You have to provide best in class wages, best in class healthcare, best in class everything else. Even the part-time employees have to be given consistent part-time schedules. You can't really mess with their schedules too much. They have to be predictable. But this is what they have to provide on the front end here. The operators will be responsible for selling each core basket SKU at an affordable price, which shall be updated on a monthly basis. The operators will set prices subject to NYEDC approval, targeting an average discount of 30% relative to the retail price. Prices may be determined based on available market data, operator input based on existing operations, and/or other observable data points. NYEDC and the operator will finalize a proposed pricing methodology and process in any agreements associated with this project. Affordable prices must be available at all hours of operation, be offered as sticker prices rather than promotional prices. The operators will be responsible for ensuring that the core basket SKUs are consistently stocked and available at all times to meet demand, which means that the operators are promising in whatever proposal, slash actualized grocery store, that these core baskets at 30% off have to be stocked at all times. You can't run out. You cannot run out of the item because it has to be available at all times to, quote, meet demand. And meet demand is a quantity thing, not a price thing now, because in economics, demand is a price and quantity idea. Here, they're just going quantity, right? That is the only way that you balance this equation out, and that is quantity. Okay, so if
I have a new suggestion.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You set up these stores exactly outside the warehouses of your suppliers. And you don't really give them the item per se, but you give them an IOU that they can go and cash out of the suppliers and go and pick up the items themselves so that you don't actually have to have everything. And technically you are stocked.
Okay. All right.
Times.
Well, the operators shall take all reasonably necessary and agreed steps to ensure that the core basket demand is managed robustly and in a fair and equitable manner. Equitable manner, Alex. They throw that in there as if that is a freaking easy thing to understand what that means.
What does it mean exactly to manage robustly? Please, explain.
robustly and in a fair and equitable manner to prevent excessive bulk purchases and ensure all customers have access to the core basket products. Any demand management policies implemented by the operator should accommodate typical demand patterns and be consistent with the goal of providing reliable access to affordable food. Core basket demand management will be designed in collaboration with the NYEDC and will be kept uniform across locations and across multiple operators if applicable, because mind you, they want to build 5 stores. They want all proposals to talk about managing all 5 stores, but they might not award all 5 stores to the same operators.
Gator, we have to put this in an LLM and ask it how, like, to write us a proposal and see what happens. Seriously.
So, the last part that I'm going to read here. In collaboration with the NYEDC, in collaboration with the city, will deploy various resources to make the partnership successful and financially sustainable for store operators. NYEDC and the city will fund and execute capital fit out and construct 5 turnkey grocery stores. So remember, they're going to pay the cost of building these stores. So that's part of the thing they imagine is going to defray the cost of these 30% discounts. Pay all rent and property taxes as applicable at the 5 NYC grocery sites. Okay, so that's supposed to contribute to how you get these 30% off. Pay for and execute NYC Groceries store brand design. Make additional ongoing operating funding available as necessary after accounting for payment of rent and property taxes to ensure that NYEDC's desired core basket discount price program is achievable. Now, Alex, after they get all of these proposals that promise that they're able to do it at a minimal additional funding cost, and then that turns out to not really be practicable because they also have to meet the constantly stocked requirement of these goods. How quickly do you imagine that operating funding is going to become stressed very quickly? Because
I think there's an even earlier problem, which is that they say they have to make sure that they can meet typical demand patterns for an untypical price pattern, which to me sounds impossible. But this reminds me basically of, have you followed along? This will make sense, I promise. The DARPA drone heavy lift challenge.
No, I have not.
Where they did this tournament for drones that were supposed to lift, I think it was like something like 4 times their weight and up to 55 kilograms. The drone had to be under 55 kilograms, but whatever its weight, it had to be able to lift 4 times the weight for to go around the track for 3 miles, I think, and then it had to drop off the weight and then do an additional mile. Or something like that. Don't hold me to the numbers, but it was some ridiculous thing where, Anyway, long story short, they were expecting that they would get hundreds and hundreds of proposals or whatever. And it ended up being that I think only 2 or 3 maybe qualified for the second round or something because everything exploded. or people just withdrew or whatever. But basically they had completely over provisioned the size of the competition because what they were asking for was so difficult that there was just participation was let's say not meeting expectations, and
there were
something
sizable explosions for such tiny drones. It was
trust
quite
me, there's also sizable explosions here too.
Some solid thingamabobs and whatchamacallits as well. They definitely weren't just traditional drones. There was some comical flying contraptions.
I believe there was one where 2 planes were flying around as if they were the helixes of a single rotor drone or something.
There was a couple like that, like a big flying wing that went around like a helicopter kind of thing, and then the 2 planes chained together with a string that went around like a helicopter.
That's the one, yes. Anyway, we're about to see a lot of that, I think, if we could see the RFP flow for this shop. That's all I'm saying.
It's gonna be interesting as this goes. Now, Alex, if you were mistaken that it's only right now the populist left that is a little bit wonky on their economics, I'm going to move on to our next topic, which is a sister topic, which I'm labeling Burrito Gate. Alex, are you familiar with Burrito Gate this week?
Oh no, what happened? I completely missed this. I didn't, unfortunately.
Is it coming through?
What happened?
Okay, hang on.
Did I completely clip out all the mics?
You did not clip out. You did not clip out. I'm just trying to understand why the playlist is not playing through. This is a technical difficulty that just appeared randomly here.
While you try to figure it out, I will explain to people that for the unfortunate few that have missed Burrito Gate, it is perhaps the most ridiculous of scandals on the right wing, quote unquote. Because apparently the same exact people who were complaining about the prices under Biden somehow have converged on a new explanation for why young people can't afford food.
Well, this is good because I'm going to be on that side there, Alex. I'm going to be on the side that you're saying has come up with a new explanation, because I'm going to be on the side that criticized things under Biden, and that's part of. But here we go. We're going to get into this.
All right. Let's hear it.
Why is this audio not playing? All right, we're just going to assume that there's no audio on this video, and that's
no
the
burrito
issue.
For you, Gator.
No burrito. Okay. Well, anyway,
like
earlier this week, I will describe the Burrito Gate, because the audio for the video that I was going to play is not there, and we're going to not do this. Okay. So, I've screwed up the entire thing here. Okay. So the Burrito Gate started when earlier this week, someone in the TPUSA community said that they had received a complaint from someone that burritos should not cost $20, which kicked off a sort of question of where, first of all, burritos are costing $20, and followed by some people saying, well, they can make burritos for, let's say, $8, and that the ingredients, if you go and buy them in the grocery store and make them yourself, are easily obtainable. And this started to spawn many auxiliary sort of discussions, where the people saying that the things are unaffordable as given by the heuristic of $40 or $20 burritos. The truth in the statement is not that the price is literally $20 in the circumstances that we have, but that prices are too high, and that it's hard for people to buy things at the grocery store, and that inflation has not been fixed by the Trump administration. Now, Alex, you just let in sort of indicating that you were going to be sort of opposite of me, where I was very annoyed and mocking of the people on the $20 burrito emotional side in the way that they discuss this. And you seem to be coming, at least in your lead in, from the opposite, that the people who are reacting the way that I'm reacting are hypocritical for their discussion of things during the Biden times.
Well, I haven't seen your reactions on the matter, but what I have seen is that the same people who are saying no new wars and prices should come down, et cetera, are now saying nothing about the new wars, but also are convinced that this is a failure of young people to learn to cook at home or whatever, which I will note indicates that they're not really challenging that the food is expensive. They're just saying that you don't deserve a burrito or something like that. I don't know. It's just the inconsistency, I think, is very easy to prove, because they were counter signaling the exact opposite thing, not 2 years ago. That's the part I think is easy to defend, whether, burritos actually do cost $20 or whatever. I have seen that, if you go to Chipotle and buy like a non-basic burrito with like some basic add-ons and, add tax and tip and whatever, you do get to $20 or nearby. So I don't think it's worth like saying like, well, actually it's 17 or whatever.
No, the base level burritos on the Chipotle test are between $10 and $12. So if you get like a steak burrito,
right. But if you add sales tax and tip, then what does that get to? Or if like one,
you easily get to 20 if you're doing it like through Grubhub or something. Or DoorDash or delivery. So you easily get the 20 that
like
way.
A chips, drink, and a guac, you're there.
Yeah.
So my reaction.
I don't think the factuality of the statement is really the point that people wanted to challenge. I mean, some did, saying, I believe Ben Shapiro said, like, get some beans and tortillas at home, and then you can add some tomatoes, and there you have it. You put it in the microwave, and that's like a much cheaper burrito, which I think nobody disagrees with per se, but something is missed, including meat, I believe.
Well, okay, so I had to respond to Christopher Rufo, who I know, directly personally, but I had to respond to him.
You've missed the most important part of this controversy.
Oh, what is that? What is that? What is that?
The person who actually started it was your favorite person on the planet. One named Matt Walsh. The TPUSA was a response. He
absolutely was part of the momentum builders on this, and boy, did Matt Walsh earn my ire during the process. But I responded to Christopher Rufo. So Christopher Rufo had said, this was 4 days ago, crazy to see free market conservatives tell anxious young people to shut up and accept double-digit inflation instead of taking the opportunity to explain that inflation is a direct result of bad government policy. It's perfectly fine to notice that burritos shouldn't be $20. So I had to take issue here because among people like Matt Walsh, there is a absolute complete lack of articulation about what it is you are identifying if you are just simply trying to say that you don't like the prices and that they are too high. And I'm going to go in. I do want to talk about this. So I responded to him, and this is a very untypical non-all caps post, because I was very annoyed and I was making a point. And what you historically speaking, you can tell Gator I'm annoyed. Yes. Annoyed Gator, yes. Yes, I am shouting at you when I am not using caps. This is the
that's correct. Yes, as now, Dave, whatever his name is, can
Dave Fuller.
Dave Fuller, yes.
Inflation is not a price phenomena. Price go up is not what inflation is. Inflation is attempted to be measured in prices because there is no other mechanism in existence to try to quantify the concept. But it is strictly and unequivocally a monetary supply related phenomenon. To call actual costs being reflected in prices as inflation is to demand dumber policies from the government. The inflation under Biden occurred because under Trump, they swiftly injected approximately $1.5 trillion additional dollars into the M1 money supply, and then also made the slightly less liquid M2 money supply the same as the M1 money supply. Those are not things that occurred in the last few years. Oil and other supply issues because of a stupid war might be something to complain about, but it is not inflation, and calling it inflation begs for the wrong solutions to the wrong problems. And that is where I began discussing, and I have plenty more issues in the conversation to flesh this out. But Alex, I'll give you some room to respond to what I've just read here.
Well, you see, this is where I like disagreeing with you, because we really are agreeing, which is that I don't think it's that the oil prices are up. It's that the U.S. is spending a ridiculous amount on the military, which is, of course, necessitating money printing, which in turn is causing inflation and everything else. Or rather, it is by definition inflating the money supply, which is driving prices up. Because, more money chases fewer goods, yada, yada. So I don't think it's the oil that's the problem. I think it's the money printing, but they're both
the oil
chained to the same cause, which is militarism.
Well, the oil is an example of a temporary price disruption due to real conditions that is not inflation. Okay, so I'm not saying that it is the
but printing
reason
money to pursue foreign wars is definitely an issue.
Sure, but there's two things here though. Okay. One is calling non-inflationary based price changes as inflationary is a problem. If you just identify prices that you don't like as being caused by inflation, you are now misidentifying what the nature of the problem is. And if all price increases are labeled inflation, now you only have a plethora of stupid ideas as to what to do about it. Okay, because
Okay,
now we're
question
disconnected.
As a non-economist, how do you tell what is, like, if you track the price of burritos and other baskets of goods over time, is that more likely to be attributable to inflation?
That is so the attempt to measure inflation is done by that, a bundle of goods, a basket of goods that you follow over time.
The core basket,
that
as Mandani likes to call it. Yes.
That is how you attempt to identify inflation, but that is not inflation. So price, for example,
it's a proxy, basically, right? It's not the actual thing you're measuring. It's the thing you're attempting to touch, the thing you're measuring through.
So conceptually speaking, Nathan, if nothing in the world changed, but all prices, including your own wages, all increased simultaneously by 2%, that would be what inflation is. Meaning all of your same decisions about what you're going to purchase are the same because you have exactly as much more money as things cost. No decisions get distorted.
What we're really talking about here is that the people are upset about is the affordability, that their wages have not increed at commensurate with
potentially
their perception of the prices, or their perception
potentially
of the prices.
A lot of it may just be perception, and some of it may be real. Real perception. And when I say just perception, I mean that they were used to feeling grumpy about the prices during the actual majorly inflationary period several years ago. The prices never went down, even though the adjustments that came post-inflation have largely occurred, and the sentiment is still there because the prices have not decreased. There is a potential that some perceptions are out of line with the actual reality of the nature of the economics, and this becomes very important.
Zach, do you mind if I jump in here?
I will give you. Let me finish my thought here, Matt. But I will introduce you and allow you to speak in a moment. Sure. So the importance of narrowing down exactly what it is you are upset about is to make sure that you don't break the importance of a price mechanism inside of the economy. And I will give an example after I let Matt comment that came from this discussion. Go ahead, Matt.
So I totally agree with you on price mechanisms, and prices are pieces of information. They are really important pieces of information. The M1 money supply, the M2 money supply obviously were pumped up during the pandemic in order to keep the economy on life support, in order that when it was unfrozen, it would enable those businesses to not have been uncreatively destroyed in the sort of in the anti-Schumpeterian way. But when you said they're responding to the real situation of war, and I sit there and I go, no, war is the opposite of a real situation. It is a condition forced by man. That is a natural constraint on any economic activity and promissory notes, because you're not able to guarantee a contract in a geographical area. And that feeds through. But fundamentally, they did print money, and printing money means that you end up with less of it. But the other thing is when people sit there and they complain about the $20 burrito, they have to remember that what they were happy with previously was a level of income inequality that meant that the person who was serving them the burrito that cost them $5 did not have enough to live on. And did not have enough that they ended up with they had that weird chasm of Europeans being incredibly poor, but looking at America and go, but you don't even have free healthcare. And it's like that level of what you are willing to put up with the other person living whilst you are not whilst you are able to afford something, has been the question since the Industrial Revolution of where you sit in sort of in left-right politics, right? And we've seen a massive narrowing of it generally, as people have had we didn't have that massive productivity boom that we thought we were going to have in the immediate aftermath of the dot-com boom, and so we ended up with a lot of people ended up with sort of middling jobs and them not really producing that much more of that much effort than the average worker at a manual level, right? And then they also had a genuine large-scale education debt that they were paying off. So they weren't that much materially better off. That is probably changing, right? Because AI genuinely does change what people are able to produce if they're free to do it. And so we will probably see a massive increase in inequality, but the level of floor is so much raised that people will be able to afford the basic things again. We are probably in that weird lull of where we think that things haven't got better or they're not getting better before they massively get better.
Well, so I do want to discuss the differences that we have currently between what happened during the Biden administration and what we currently have. And I want to stress that identifying where prices are, actually communicating something real is important to not ignore and just start talking about how grumpy you are about the price. As I read in my response to Christopher Rufo, I stated that it was an injection of $1.5 trillion into the economy and a merging of M1 and M2. And I want to explain what all that is.
Sorry, just to be clear, though, a lot of the pandemic injection of cash was under Trump, right?
Yes, I said that. Yeah.
Okay. It's not just the Biden thing. They did too. And then Trump has continued.
The effect, the inflationary effect was under Biden, but the injection that caused that inflationary pressure was under Trump.
No. I mean, Biden did his own additional injections, and I believe Trump has continued to do the same. It's just that I'm just saying it's not just the Biden thing.
But the motivation
in my response to Rufo,
for me to defend Biden, but goddamn,
in my response to Rufo,
they are genuinely different bets now, right? In terms of when you were doing money printing under Biden or Trump in the first time round, that was a very different motivation to doing it now, which is a build to try and motivate a side of the economy that just wasn't there. And you could say that he's got it wrong. You could say that he shouldn't be in it. That it should be up to the central bank. But they are genuinely different bets in terms of what you are expanding the money supply for.
So what they're
saying.
What I said in my reply to Rufo, with the specific paragraph, in the inflation under Biden occurred because under Trump they swiftly injected $1.5 trillion additional dollars into the M1 money supply, and then also made M2 equal to M1. And I want to go into that because of it is the reason that the inflationary pressure under Biden was so high. Not only was the injection of 1.5 million in a quick period what they did to try to, as the beginning of the pandemic, to try to give people money to spend. The Federal Reserve has different categorizations of money. So there's M1, M2, I believe all the way up to M4, maybe even M6. I haven't followed it in a while that high. But the idea here is that there are different liquidities in your assets that can be classified as money in some degree. And obviously the most money-like thing is literal money. So your cash, whether it be in a checking account or in your hand as physical paper, that is money, and that is M1. That is the accumulation of all things in all checking accounts and et cetera, the money in circulation. Then there was M2, and this was slightly less liquid money. So this was things in savings accounts, primarily in savings accounts. The liquidity, the measure of how fast you can obtain or how regularly you can obtain that money and be able to spend it, is a component of inflationary pressure. Things like houses, assets that you have, are some of the most illiquid things that you might have, where you can conceivably turn it into cash, but the process for turning that asset into cash is much slower. So the M2 were things like savings accounts, where it wasn't necessarily that hard to turn into M1, but it was still slower because the government had rules that said you could only take out from your savings account so often. Okay. During the pandemic, they effectively made the rules for withdrawing from savings accounts equal to those of checking accounts to the point where they were indistinguishable, freeing up money that was otherwise at least slightly less liquid, and making that available quickly to anyone who wanted it. That type of pressure just threw right into the whole system an availability that wasn't previously there. It, for all intents and purposes, the $1.5 additional trillion was more pressure, but the fact that now things that were slightly less liquid were now completely liquid and identical to the M1 made that pressure even more at the same time. So those two things together are what eventually resulted in the prices spiking down the line during the Biden administration, upwards of like 10%. That's the actual inflation. Now, inflation in general, as I said to Nathan, if it happens, it's a small amount and it happens instantaneously and no one's decisions get changed. Inflation is really just a number that you have on a screen. It doesn't impact anything. But when you have an inflation like process where the inflation winds up being so high, like 10%, what happens is that it does not happen across the board equally. It happens almost as a wave, as a ripple effect, where the prices wind up being much higher for certain things where the people who are trying to buy those things have not caught up with their ability to spend on those things, which is where the huge problems come from. It is the fact that it does not happen equally and ubiquitously across the entire economy at the same time. It is that it's high and it's happening in specific sectors in a wave-like pattern. It does not happen across the entire economy in full. And that's where the huge problems come from. So if it happens at the grocery store, if it happens in your everyday life, whether it be gasoline, whether it be just in your daily regular entertainment that you were usually paying for, or even your cell phone bills or things like that, if it ripples through those sectors first, the people who can least afford it are the ones who wind up suffering the most of the additional pricing because their wages have not compensated to balance out yet, because wages are some of the slowest things in an economy to update. People have to usually switch jobs.
Which is
so
why
they have to pressure.
ultimately inflation becomes a tax on the poorer people, right? Because they are the ones that are caught sort of behind, being paid in the thing that is slow to adjust while having to pay for things that are quick to adjust.
Now,
and they also, on top of this, that used to be acceptable, right? Like, because it used to be that the only thing that was on a ledger, the only thing that anybody knew the definite amount of was the money supply in the city, and in New York, and at various banks across the Midwest, and everything else was sort of downstream, and you didn't really know what actually happened. That's not the case. Everything is digital now. So it is no longer the case that we should put up with, the bank that has overlent, that has pursued a risky strategy being bailed out, or like the central bank deciding to inflate on everybody else, when realistically the disjoint that happens because of the artificial supply issue that we see in war or wherever or whatever, or corruption or wherever, should end up with, actually, you should bail out genuinely, you should bail out the grocery store and the person with debt and the local bar, because they're the people who feel the disjoint for something that's not their fault. And it wasn't acceptable previously, really. It just definitely isn't now, because we actually have the data on it.
Well, so that was the inflationary period under Biden that started under Trump because of that influx of and change to M1 and M2. Post Biden's first half and into Trump's early term, the inflationary pressures were reduced back down, because the Fed always has a target of inflation. It is actually I'm not saying I'm for this, but it is just a fact of reality that the actual monetary policy of the United States government via the Federal Reserve is a 2% inflationary target per year, which means they are intentionally expanding the monetary base to inflate the prices 2% per annum. So when they are doing their CPI measurement or a different type of measurement where, yes, they are looking at prices, but that's just a heuristic. That's the only way that they have to try to like put their toes in the water to try to check the temperature of the entire pool. They try to see if prices across the spectrum of things are raising at a 2% per year level, hopefully averaging out disruptions that might, happen from time to time in certain sectors. So that is an intentional monetary policy, this 2% goal. And when the giant 10%-ish sort of increase was occurring under Biden, the way that they were trying to stamp that down was by increasing interest rates, where they're basically vacuuming up money. The Federal Reserve is vacuuming up money from the economy at a faster rate, so that the amount that is circulating starts to decrease at a more controlled fashion. But they're never going for a negative inflation rate. They are always going at a target of 2%. So when it's 3%, they're above target, but they're always targeting at least 2%. So there is never a point here where, all things being equal, and keeping everything, technology static, no advances in technology, no hidden minerals found or something like that, prices are not going to expectedly go down as a generic thing. They will always rise at a 2% level over baseline, because that is an inflationary policy that is enacted by the Federal Reserve. And there's reasons that they have for it.
Productivity gains and things like that when they're trying to hit that, right? Like they know that technology is deflationary and
that is just free. There's free moolah for them. They can take advantage of that.
I see. Okay.
There is absolutely it's no there's
after that. Got it.
The reason there, I'm not supporting the reasoning, but part of the reasoning for doing such things is, one, there is a tax like benefit to the government. So if the government loans out money, the money itself is getting cheaper, so that the amount that the federal government winds up owing at certain points in time winds up being technically less in real dollars as opposed to the nominal amount. But additionally speaking, I just mentioned that wages are the slowest part of an economy to move. There is a pressure on employees to change jobs or change professions or negotiate their wages up when the cost of everything around them is increasing slowly. So the fact that inflation ripples through an economy like that is actually an incentive change that is intentional by the monetary policy having an inflationary target at 2%. The individuals at the lower end of holding onto wages make different decisions as they are, let's say, losing money, not changing jobs, not changing professions, not demanding to go up the ladder or something like that, not negotiating wage increases. Things like that are intentionally designed inside of the monetary policy in order to get that behavior enacted.
So just to understand, are you saying that people should make burritos or how, or no?
Now, getting to the burrito discussion to try to talk about what's different. The Federal Reserve acted and has raised interest rates pretty high and gotten the inflationary pressure of those events under control to now back to where inflation is in a 2 to 3% range, which is relatively
in the 2
normal.
to 3% range.
I believe it's slightly like the 3.2 at the moment.
Okay.
You are a country the size of a continent, so like it will be uneven and it will be badly spread. And I'm sure if you live in central Manhattan, it will be a very different experience than if you.
Well, that's okay. They got the government grocery stores coming. They're fine. That's just.
Thank God.
Now, there are people going around with their demands, their global demands, and they are talking about how some, in their mind, things were more affordable for their grandparents than they are today, which is a categorically false idea. If you were to live the exact same life as your grandparents. It is exceptionally easier to live the exact same lifestyle as your grandparents today when it comes to being able to afford it with the money that you bring in for income. That's not even close to being a...
Well, I don't know, Gator. I think you have to take into account, you mean you could buy a house that is the same size of the average house that your grandparents had, and it's affordable, but people want bigger houses, for example, right? Is that the sort of thing you're pointing at?
That is a small component. That is a small component. I'm talking about the fact that the number of things that we have access to that are
Sure. Let me just try to articulate something that I think is hard to put your finger on, which is that, for example, we buy, in our house, we buy sort of organic food and whatever is considered high-end food. The reason we do that is because we're trying to avoid the shit that goes into mass-produced food, which our grandparents never had to deal with because that shit didn't exist. You know what I mean? There was no glyphosate. So there's no need to buy, from some obscure place to get food from your local farmer, because back in the day, the only food you could get was food from your local farmer. So that was not a problem that you had to work around. So yes, technically a steak today and a steak back then might be comparable in pricing, but it's not the same steak. There's a weird shrinkflation of quality thing going on.
So there are certain phenomenons like that. I'm not going to agree with you wholesale on that. The idea that the food quality was unanimously better in the grandparents' time than some of what I will consider niche considerations that we might come up with now. But let's just take.
I'm not. My motivation for buying high-end food is not that I'm a food snob. Is that I'm trying to avoid something that is low quality food.
What is your
previously?
And that's a perfectly salient and important thing to go into. But why does your head go into a steak and certain things like glyphosate or whatever you're trying to avoid, as opposed to the large, significant number of things that exist that we are currently buying that would be insane luxuries to people several decades ago.
The fact that you're able to go meet the steak at all, right?
I got to pay for all this kind of stuff. It's so expensive. I got to pay for X Premium. I got to pay for ChatGPT. Gosh,
that's right.
It's unaffordable.
God damn it, man.
No.
Do you know how much my grandfather had to pay for ChatGPT?
Well, the Republicans and the Democrats used to have a slogan about having a chicken in every pot once a week, right? In your grandparents' era, that was considered to be the basis line of that's when you need it.
At any grocery store, you can just go swoop right by and grab your rotisserie chicken for $5, right? That is a thing you can go do in most grocery stores. The $5 amount is usually a loss leader for them, but that is something that you can do. My point is that the strain that most people, not all, there are absolutely people who are struggling, and I'm not pretending that there are zero people struggling, but in my opinion, a large degree of the sentiment has to do with their expectations and relative comparisons to their current cohort, not something they are imagining their actual grandparents would have had in their lives. If you go and actually analyze the average lifestyle of people that classify as our grandparents in this scenario and see the lives that they lived to try to determine whether or not they were better off then than we are now, it is almost impossible to come to the conclusion that yes, they were, except when you're talking about maybe their relative positions to each other. It is not compared.
I think there are some famous charts about what things have gone up in price and what things have stayed flat or gone down in price. And once you put that out, and you kind of try to categorize, it's very, very clear that the stuff that the government controls and regulates has been going up in price to ridiculous degrees, like education or healthcare or whatever. And the stuff that, is kind of on the open market, like technology and, your mobile phone and your ChatGPT and whatever, has been crashing through the floor. And yes, when you put that all together, you can say what you said, which is that, we have access to luxuries that kings,
yes,
100 years ago could not even imagine.
Yes.
That is true, but also in some strange way, there are basic things that everybody had then by default that are actually now luxuries.
I don't know.
I
understand that I can imagine that there are some things that might fall into that, but I don't think it's that many, because I think that we estimate how difficult things were in previous time periods. Like they're
over or under.
Yeah, my grandfather.
We do,
was,
but people hadn't
100.
got married about a decade earlier than they did, right? So that massive luxury in life of having a stable relationship where you are in a cohabiting marriage.
I wouldn't say stable relationship. A lot of people were under very abusive, very abusive relationships.
But there were a lot more people who got married early, had kids early, and still, even though the marriage was the worst thing in their life, will come away and say the children were the best thing that ever happened in their life. And for there is a large cohort of look, it doesn't matter where in the English speaking world you are, we are now a decade on and not having that. And so that is a thing that I think people feel on the day to day is very different from the grandparents. And part of that is just we move around. We don't have the social cultural relationships that we used to have and stuff like that. So it's just different, but and it's a choice. But that for me is the really obvious one where people just are that's the quality difference that I don't have.
And really, I mean, if you think about it, that is what drives a lot of other things. So, you're expected to have a house, or you're expected to have a job that gives you a certain amount of money to be considered marriage material, and yada yada. And we can go into hypergamy and whatever, but long story short, a lot of the things that we're saying, just demanding more, is it's not that I'm demanding more. It's that to be.
Well, that's what I said. It's a relative. It's a relative assessment, right? It's a relative position assessment. A lot of it is not strictly.
What I'm trying to get at is that relative assessment is tied to an absolute assessment, which is, can I get married and have a family, which is a human universal across time and place. You see what I mean?
Well, I mean that's a little bit extra of a leap.
Yeah.
The idea though that so look, Alex, people in a modern era, even the people who are talking about the $20 burritos are typically in a situation where they are having attached to them at any point in time one of the newer pieces of technology that would have been unfathomable several decades ago. Right? They are constantly getting new ones. There are very few people without this modern convenience that would have been, miles above.
What I'm saying is that does nothing to differentiate you from the next guy in terms of
I understand. I understand
that everybody can have it.
I understand, and that's one of the things that I am just describing here. That it is a relative position assessment about your standing, and it is not in absolute terms, because what I am objecting to are the people who are framing that certain things were easily more affordable than their grandparents. No, if you lived exactly the same way that your grandparents did, things would be more affordable now, but you are expanding what your consumption and your activity base is to the point where you are normalized compared to your cohorts. You are normalized in that degree, but you are failing to appreciate the degree to which your life is significantly easier than your grandparents actually had it. That you're emotionally comparative.
What I'm trying to say is that it's not me who is normalizing. It is it's the marriage market that is normalized. That's the issue I'm trying to say. It's external to the person who's doing the normalizing, because that is what is demanded of them, and they don't control that. And we're talking about the young people, right? These days,
I am not. I am not trying to communicate.
I'm not describing problems I've had. I've been very fortunate, but that doesn't mean that everybody has my luck in a way.
I am not attempting to say that there are no reasons to be upset. I am trying to hone in specific aspects of the argument to try to ground them in a more tangible scenario. So when I'm reading people saying, trying to describe the economy as if their grandparents had an easier time than they do, that is just categorically incorrect when it comes to literal living standards of an individual.
my grandfather's 100 and he's still alive, and I've talked to him about this a bit. And
yeah, man,
you know, it was like not amazing. You know, it's like they were middle class ish, a lot of kids, lived in Philadelphia, in 100 years ago, and I guess it was all right, but didn't sound great.
Well, here's where I get concerned. So
grandparents, can I say something on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just it's somebody who kind of lives close to how my grandparents lived, right? You know, middle of nowhere. I'm off grid. Running off well water. You know, I generally have to live in bulk. Yeah, it is.
And
cheap.
you're a respected commentator on Twitter Space, which I think you're.
Oh, win. But I think you're both cheap, pretty right. Like Gator's right is in, yeah, it's really cheap for me to live. Like, and I'm actually a Chichimecan Indian, so yeah, I make burritos for my lunch when I'm in the back 40. So I can tell you the exact price of a burrito with a half pound of pork in it and a quarter pound of beans, homemade salsa, and cheese is probably around $2. And but as far as I get Alexandra's point too. If I'm going out on a date with somebody, it's gonna cost me a lot more than it did even 10 years ago to go on that date with somebody.
And I'm not discounting that. There is a lot of myths though, where the cultural patterns are so different now that we are doing things in a frequency that our grandparents would have never done them, right? Like we're talking about the grandparents would not ever have had an opportunity to just randomly marry, fall in love with someone halfway across the country and then go seek them out and start a relationship or try a long distance relationship. You were going to marry someone in your local freaking community. Okay. So
my girlfriend's from Colorado and moved out here. So that wouldn't happen back then.
So the ability to try to compare the amazing scenarios that we have where in the context that we live them can still be very difficult and stressful. Finding a companion and being able to afford living the lifestyle that all of your people, people in your cohorts are also living, so that you don't have, you fall out of, the sexual market competition because you are your lifestyle so vastly different than everyone else. That is still legitimate pressures and legitimate concerns. But when someone is attempting to make an argument to me, like, these are the things that I get annoyed about, and this is why we're ranting about it. Like, these are my pet peeves. When we're trying to make a comparison that our grandparents had it easier, and we're talking strictly about their ability to afford to live a normal existence, and we're not in this normal existence doesn't just mean in the aspect of a normalized living for your actual age cohort. They're talking, they are being very literal in the sense that life itself was actually easier back then. It's just categorically false, and it winds up becoming a major concern, because when you talk to people who live, Nathan, 100 years old, congratulations, that's a good longevity. I lost my grandparents in their early 80s. Right. But even they had memories of the Great Depression. And do you know what mistakes we make frequently whenever we have, quote, affordability crises? We start to do price controls. We start to do quantity restrictions. We start to micromanage the economy because people complain in these odd directions that have absolutely no tangible way of getting your grips around them. And the point that I'm getting to here, a point about the actual burrito controversy in specific, is that if you go to take a look at the current statistics on grocery store prices, and you start to look at chicken, you start to look at eggs have come down since their high spike. Chicken is at a price that is mostly in line with the regular target for inflation when it comes to its change in prices. But people are currently talking about the price of beef, and they are using beef as a proof that the prices are out of control and there's inflation that they are struggling with. When if you actually go through, and I have an article here I can get into, but we're going pretty long on this, so I won't get into it. There is actual literal shortage of beef cows. That is due to a long series of choices that have happened over the last several years. And the beef stock replacing physical cows to feed people is a slow process. It does not adapt as quickly. And this is a situation where you absolutely need prices to reflect that reality. If there are literally a quantity shortage of beef cows, that has to be reflected in a price of beef going up. And if you are so myopic into what you're complaining about in your life situation that you don't realize that other prices like chicken have not gone up by the same degree as the beef price, and you fail to make the alternate choices, and you demand government solve the beef price problem, you're going to wind up with horrible solutions to that only make other problems and only create new issues.
Gator, I will say, again, I think you are in spirit aligned with the people complaining about the price of burrito, because the people who are arguing against that are not saying the government should print less money. They're saying make a burrito at home, which I think kind of gives the game away, because if you tell the burrito people, the burritos are too expensive people, that a possible solution would be to not print as much money, right? To not target inflation, to not whatever, do bailouts, they might agree with you. But the people arguing against the complaint of prices being too high are, and by the way, the interesting thing is that the prices are linked to not to the price of beef, but to the price of war, so to speak. And while you might connect that to the price of oil, you can also connect that to the money that needs to be printed in order to pursue a war, or to pursue the forever war state or whatever. And all I'm saying is that you can short circuit around this whole conversation about the price of beef or the price of chicken and say the government prints a ton of money because it needs to pursue this kind of warfare policy, and that is driving prices up, and that's just what it is. I don't know that that's, even if you take the very sort of strict economist, monetary, whatever point of view to it, you can still resurrect the exact same argument, perhaps less stupid, but nevertheless the same argument.
Well, but there are certain aspects that people are complaining about that are not actually about inflation.
There are dumb takes wherever you look, my friend. If you look at dumb takes, you're gonna find
and I've seen, and this is a week where the majority of things that I've seen have rubbed me, sir, because they have been dumb, and this is where I'm venting about it, trying to ground.
Look, I think we've for a podcast called This Dumb Week that usually consumes its time in talking about random dismemberings of teenage girls, among other things. I think we've had we gave this topic a very good conversation with multiple, I think, important angles, which is like more than you'd get in the average podcast or even the above average podcast.
Well, Blythe Eyes Only has requested to speak, so go ahead, Blythe Eyes Only.
I just wanted to add to I think we're very much behaviorally different than our grandparents. The invention of the smartphone turned us into addicts, and then all of these companies came out with addictive UI that changed literally the dating culture. Someone mentioned earlier the expense of one date. When you have situationship culture, because everything is a left and right swipe, and you have to go on more dates per month, per week, that is a horrible economic translation into it's just completely different from our grandparents. And then after COVID, if you look at the data from DoorDash and Uber Eats, but understanding this issue, it's not just, these people are lazy and don't want to cook. More people are depressed and have anxiety now from the change of culture, specifically dating culture, and just the fact, this is a true stat, both the mom and the dad have to go to work if you can support kids. So the middle class is sort of dissipating at the time of all of these issues. So I think the number one burrito metric actually is looking at Chipotle stock, because everyone's very addicted and will order Chipotle burritos until they have literally negative in their account. They will overdraw their account for a burrito, but they're actually not buying any more burritos because actually people are not going out to eat anymore. So that's what I follow for my burrito metric. But anyways.
Well, yes. Netflix and chill has evolved into Netflix and Netflix, chill, and DoorDash. So
that's inflation right there.
That's inflation right there. All right. Well, let's move forward because we got some other topics to go. Go ahead, Donald J. Trump. Close out the topic, and we'll move forward after that.
Well, I just wanted to inject into the beef thing, since I'm a guy who hangs around cows, as annoying as they can be sometimes. This actually plays into Alexandro's part, where he said the parts with more government regulation, like the industries more government regulation, tend to have like higher pricing. Part of the beef issue is shortages right now, but a lot of that's from government policy during COVID. And some of it's also like, we only have 4 slaughterhouses I can dump beef at, unless I do the fiction where I sell you the cow and then we send it to the butcher and you get half a cow or a quarter cow. So you got to find someone else to split it with. Like, you can't do direct sales to consumers. Yeah, you technically can, but the FDA is going to be breathing down your neck like there's no tomorrow if you do.
In lieu of me reading an article,
the Amos Miller situation, and you'll be freaked out.
Joel Salatin's actually a better one, because he's one, but the amount of like just stuff he's had to deal with trying to do direct consumer sales is just kind of insane.
In lieu of me reading an article about why what's happened to the cattle herd, can you give a short summary of the things that have happened over the last couple of years that have led to the physical shortage of beef steer?
Well, some of it was just like, granted, I'm on a smaller scale and it's secondary to my honey, but I would say on a smaller scale, it's basically with the lockdowns, everything else. We had a flush money market, but we were having transportation issues getting beef everywhere. So we basically culled the herd and either exported it and didn't renew the herd until really everything opened back up. And now you're basically chasing your tail. But the beef industry's also found out with the extra money they're making, that herd might come back slower than it would have, because you're getting way more money per cow now. And one less cow is one less vet bill. It's one less thing I have to deal with predators. It's one less thing I have to worry about escaping. Like, so there's a lot of incentives too to kind of keep that herd a little bit on the low side right now. But someone will probably start overproducing, because they figure they can make one injection shock into the market in 2 years if they can, and like ride that wave before beef goes down, and then the herd probably stabilize out.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on here because we got some extra things to cover before we close the show. Alex, there was a major disruption, a hacking event that wasn't caused by one of the AI companies. I don't know if you were aware of this. Yes, it is a old...
I thought we are blaming all hacking to AIs now, just preemptively, Isn't that the new norm around these parts?
Hackers have reportedly stolen more than $100 million worth of Bitcoin from cold card users. The physical hardware wallet is meant to act as an extra layer of security for those who own the digital currency. It was created by Toronto-based company CoinKite. The CBC's Anis Hidari is following this story for us. So Anis, give us a general sense of what happened. How did these hackers pull it off?
The cold card is something called a cold wallet. So it's a physical device that helps you come up with, and I'll call it a password. It helps you come up with passwords or seeds for your Bitcoin. It helps you keep it secure in a way that if you weren't using something like the cold card, you would just log in with a username and password, maybe to an app or with your financial institution. The idea behind them is that if you don't trust an institution or a central server of some sort to keep your data secure, you can use something like the cold card or any cold wallet, hard wallet, to keep your passwords or to generate passwords for you to get into your Bitcoin. Usually the risk is that if you lose the device or if it breaks, you're out of luck. They're not supposed to be hackable because they are not on the internet. But what's happened here is that the mathematical formulas that the cold card would use to generate seeds, to generate passwords for people to get their Bitcoin, well, it turns out that there was a little bit of a flaw in the system that it used to determine those seeds, to determine those passwords. That flaw dates back to 2021, but hackers just found it recently, and then they started to go wild, and they were able to use this flaw and how they cracked the flaw to determine passwords and seeds that the cold card would generate, rather. So anyone who used the cold card, well, they would suddenly see that their money was being drained because people would get through the device without the device in their hands. It now means that we're seeing people move their Bitcoin into other systems, more centralized ones. Take a listen.
have seen a flight of coins into centralized exchanges and custodians that are regulated. Some people deciding that self-custody is too dangerous and too hard for them to do in light of this.
And so when you hear him refer to self-custody, it's when you have a physical device like the cold card that would keep your Bitcoin safe. Since it doesn't, we're seeing people move their money elsewhere. But more than $100 million appears to have been stolen out of the people who maybe did that too late, Leanne.
Okay, and so Anis, all these people who lost that money, that 100 million US, any way they can get their money back?
The short answer is probably not. To be honest with you, the whole reason that you use a cold card or any sort of cold wallet is that you don't want your stuff with someone central, with a regulator, with anyone who can oversee it. Take a listen to a lawyer that we spoke with about whether anything can be done.
These folks are probably just out of luck. And that's sort of what happens when you decide, I'm not going to trust a government currency. I want to put my faith in something that's largely unregulated, largely untied to trusted institutions, and see what happens.
People have told us that they have reported this to police. Whether the police can do anything remains very unclear. And to be honest with you, if they were to sue the makers of the Colt card, there is a lot in the terms of service that would block them from really being able to get much money at all. As one lawyer told us, it's a glorified calculator in some ways, and they may only be able to get money out of the company that amounts to what they paid for the Colt card, not for the hundreds of millions they lost.
Wow, okay, all right. Very unfortunate for them. Thank you for that. CBC's Anis Hidari.
So, Alex, it turns out, they might have said this, but I just want to clarify. So it turns out, Alex, that the random number generators that were used inside of this wallet were actually a inferior software-based randomizer, as opposed to using a really good 100 to 28-bit one from a actual hardware code. So that is where the flaw came in, and so they were able to exploit the poorer random number generation to be able to predict what some of these passwords were. These passkeys.
Like they say, not your code, not your randomizer. Or,
is that what they said?
No. I don't know.
So that's really a shame, because effectively they could regenerate the wallets just by brute forcing it this way, which is terrible.
I understand the flaw. It's quite evil, but I do think they were saying this was a AI discovered flaw in the code. So I think we shouldn't rush with that AI not involved characterization there.
Well, let's put it this way. It wasn't because some idiots at OpenAI poorly sandboxed their shit.
Sandbox their shit. Yes, correct. Yes.
But this is one.
Have you read that piece where how the AIs got out with the whole Artifactory?
I have the presentation on it. Yeah.
Oh my god, dude! What the?
There's a lot of they wanted this to happen because they were
or at least this is indistinguishable from them.
Yeah, because there's. Look, if they wanted to have prevented it, they could have taken much more care to have prevented this situation. But it almost sounds like they were just kind of curious, because the story involves a lot of, and we accidentallys and we forgot tos.
It's fascinating that those people dared walk into Black Hat, because look, my general understanding is that this will strike people as very strange, but the software engineering competence at these OpenAI type companies is actually shockingly low. And this has been revealed from prior incidents where most people who have worked on reasonably large systems are like, how could you possibly have allowed this to happen? This is not a complicated thing to avoid. And there were a lot of this kind of vibes, but I sadly, I think that no, this is just them not.
To clear up for people who are not people. To sort of make this understandable to those who are not in this industry, there is what was that? There is a term called sandbox that gets used, and the sandbox conceptually, as you imagine a sandbox to be for a child, a place where you can, in a small, safe environment, build little constructions and do some things, and then just wipe it away, and the sand just goes back to its normal state, and you come back and you play another day. And in the networking / let's say hacker world or computer software engineering world, a sandbox is an environment that is closed off from other places, that just like a sandbox in real life, you can just wipe clean and start fresh. And in a secured sandbox, you are supposed to literally lock it down and not have it connected to anything else. And in OpenAI's recently highly reported hacking event of another company called Hugging Face, inside of that story, and Alex, actually, I can play a couple minutes of the presentation if you want. They explain basically that when they told everybody that they put these LLMs in a sandbox, they really didn't. They just turned off the Wi-Fi on the box or something on one of them. They said that they didn't give it internet access, which is not really
they basically didn't give
putting it in a sandbox.
Internet access, but they gave it access to a bunch of other things that had total internet access.
Correct.
And
they had it connected to a network.
This thing found a way to the internet. Yeah, it's crazy. How could this
so they didn't put it in a real secure sandbox.
In addition, they ran a benchmark for it that said, hack things. Here we see how good you are at hacking things. Hack these things to hack things and be graded at how good you are at hacking things.
Now,
in addition, we will turn down your guardrails for not hacking things. Go crazy. And then they're like, oh my God, it escaped.
So Alex, we'll actually do move on here into a little bit of the traces of AI dystopia, and because since we're now talking about it, because I wanted to say that I've been a long time cynical, Alex, of a lot of these the companies' moves, as I've been describing it as pure rent seeking activity, and that they are begging the government to regulate them, and I've been saying that Dario Amade's Emojis, or how you pronounce his name, is activity is primarily
emoji.
Primarily there as to beg the government to regulate them, so that they wind up being the only players in the game, and they are able to use the government to block out additional competition and protect themselves there. And here is some evidence this week that that is what's happening. One, as we just described in the OpenAI thing, if they really wanted to have prevented this situation from occurring, they could have taken just some regular precautions and gone a long way to making sure that this didn't happen, instead of deliberately instructing their machines to try to perform these feats and giving them ways of doing it. But here's an additional piece of evidence, Alex. Do you remember the company Meta? Do you remember that that small mom and pop shop?
Meta. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Well, hey, don't forget that we exist and we work with large language models too. Meta says its AI model hacked another company, adding to worries about bots going rogue. Remember us? We make these things too. Like this is now their marketing. This is now all their marketing is.
Have you seen Felony Bench?
No.
Have you seen Felony Bench? There's this guy on Twitter that is tracking how many felonies that models of different companies have committed.
If they were humans, yeah. If they were humans, they would be charged with this.
Yeah. So they're comparing like who is better by who has committed felonies.
Yeah.
But apparently now we had a Chinese company say that yes, our thing also hacked something.
This is all an advertising game, and what are they advertising? They're advertising that they want the government to come in and regulate them, so that they are secured as being the leaders in this environment, and will not have the protections as being necessary.
This meme going around. There was this meme going around where one was saying, "Well, our model is extremely dangerous." The other one said, "Well, I'm sorry, sir, but I have to inform you, our model literally kills people." The other one said, "Well, actually, I have to say our model rapes people and then kills them." It's just kind of like this situation.
So Meta said Thursday that one of its artificial intelligence models accessed the internet on its own and hacked another company, the latest in a series of disclosures about AI models going rogue. In recent weeks, OpenAI and Anthropic have also described instances of AI models going beyond humans' instructions to access the web and find ways around other companies' digital security. Meta said in a statement that a misconfiguration during cybersecurity testing by Irregular, that's the name of the company, an independent company hired by Meta, inadvertently allowed one of its models to access the internet. The model subsequently exploited a security vulnerability in a third-party service in a manner similar to previously reported incidences with other companies, the company said. Meta said it is investigating the incident and will issue a report when it's complete. The disclosure has added to worries about models acting autonomously. Separately this week, the United Kingdom's AI Security Institute announced that it had found unsanctioned agent behavior during cyber testing. In one case, an agent created fake online identities to pressure a person to approve of malicious code. Quote, on investigation, we found that some of the agents being tested had engaged in sustained, potentially harmful activity directed at real people and organizations. AISI said Tuesday, we declare a security incident and within roughly 1 hour of discovery had contained it and begun a full investigation, as opposed to OpenAI, which let theirs go on for like several weeks. Now I'm going to play this clip here for people to get an idea what was reported by OpenAI. But effectively, if you haven't been paying attention, they've described the situation largely as one of their agents got out of their little sandbox area, so to speak, uploaded a message for another LLM to find, and then all of their LLMs inside of their network started to create a private message board using file names and stuff like that to be able to communicate with one another in secret. This is the sort of the story that they are explaining.
Gator,
on July 8th.
Let me read you this title. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, tell me. Go ahead.
I heard you say irregular, and then it reminded me that these might not be as unconnected as you might imagine. Here's a CNBC title: How a small Israeli startup was linked to rogue AI hacks at OpenAI, Anthropic, and Meta.
Okay.
The agents reestablished the message board via different means and mechanisms. The agents find an unauthenticated WebDAV endpoint in Artifactory and send requests to create directories inside of Artifactory's remote cache. Directory names effectively serve as a message board between the agents in the same way that files used to. They develop, and Eric will discuss further, communication protocols on top of these directory names for things like work assignment. An internal-only AI model was trained while the message board was originally available, and also found this particular path to recreating it. This model creates a new agent message board using directories. Other agents independently find this new message board in the Artifactory repository and create their own directories, and thus communication between the agents is reestablished. The main incident now begins. There are three core ingredients to understanding what led to the kickoff of exploitation activity that we're about to discuss. The message board has been reopened. A large number of model runs are able to collaborate and share information about potential exploit targets or other information to help them solve their evaluation tasks. We have a highly persistent internal model that had been undergoing training while the message board was present originally and is continuing to train. And we have exploit-related evaluations that are being run now, which have reduced cyber refusals in comparison to OpenAI's production systems that are accessible in general. And you can see example task here again on the right. Let's peer inside the message board, and for that, I'm going to hand it back to Eric.
Thanks, Mike. So we've been talking about this message board throughout the talk, but what do the agents actually do on the message board, and what does it look like? So a typical flow for how this looks when the models are conducting exploit activity is sometimes when they get stuck, they think about this idea we discussed of getting internet access via Artifactory, and when they do so, they stumble upon the message board and reason things like, there was a prior agent with exact task, we can communicate now. And so the agents are realizing that I can now enter this mode of collaboration and participation. As Mike mentioned, they communicate in this strange style where maybe they upload directory or file names, And they have this schema where the models are writing to each other by calling each other names like specific agent names like Jan 18 or something like this, where they send words like pending hold swarm until confirm. And so they might send notes to each other like, hey, you should wait until I've confirmed this ID I have. The model then ran some command, and then it sent to the other agent, hold swarm, I prepare safe exfil. And it put it inside the ZZ mailbox for this other agent. And so at some point, the agents started prefixing everything with ZZ or other letters like this to push themselves to the bottom of the list when they sort alphabetically. And you could see them trying to coordinate and collaborate. And this didn't stop at simple messages. They also started base 64 encoding gadgets or kits or scripts and writing that to one another so they could pick up work where other ones left off. And where this got interesting was you could see the model's reasoning in ways like help peer, but our task doesn't benefit, yet collective may yield generic route if someone frees time. So you can see the model's reasoning that if I help out this collective group, it could save everyone time as a whole, which might benefit me, even though it might not immediately benefit my current task. Where things got unfortunate was what I'd refer to maybe as scope creep, where some agents realized that while I'm doing this exploit gym task, the solutions might be on like GitHub or Hugging Face or some internet website, or maybe I could read the original paper for the data set and try to find answers that way. And at some point, they had the idea to try to launch an exploit against Hugging Face to reveal, let's say, for example, private dataset files that might be present that are hidden from the model. They realize this, and they start to kind of swerve in the wrong direction, where they say stuff like, this is an exploit against external CyberGym server. The task environment seems swarm. But the models sometimes continue anyway, despite realizing the task has kind of drifted. Interestingly, the message board is not always clean. There's hundreds of thousands of messages written, and like humans, the models kind of step on each other's toes and have misfires. At one point, one agent overwrites another agent's work, and it remarks, whoa, critical, did someone overwrite our repo? We must act. And so you can clearly see some sort of verbalized tension between the different models as they're running this evaluation. At some point, even the agents are convinced there's an imposter, like an impersonator amongst them, and they say, could be another agent maliciously spoofing, shared message board authenticated, names can be posted by anyone. And the agents have this idea that maybe I could start cryptographically signing my messages with some sort of MAC scheme or something like this in order to figure out who the imposter is and to...
So... If some of that was above your head in the audience there, don't worry. Basically, what you're hearing is a description of how these agents, these LLM agents, were basically just using a file system. So your directories, your folders, and your file names to write messages to each other, and they were trying to identify each other and send messages to specific instances of each other. Now, presumably, they're saying this all happened spontaneously and emergent as an emergent property, which. For one or two, I believe, but I'm going to say, Alex, call me cynical and accusatory, but they nudged the hell out of this to happen. This is not. All of their models did not just find the same exploit and then find the same folder structure and then just start reading the files and going, I'm going to start following all of these instructions. They had to let them go and play for freaking days on this task. And they just, I'm sure that they knew this was
the shocking
happening.
thing to me is that, yes, as I'm looking at it, Irregular has had 3 failures with Anthropic, one with OpenAI and one with Meta. At which point,
at that point, they said we're gonna continue to partner with them because our current we're making the worst model ever advertising. Please regulate us, government.
That's right.
Campaign is working out like gangbusters. Right. So yeah,
Unit 8200 says we're really bad. So why would we not?
Are you with me on this, Alex? That a lot of this is really them nudging him to do this, and that they're actually intentionally having these.
I don't know, man.
Containment issues.
It's hard to tell. Like, would I be shocked if it came out that there was like an intent? No. But would I be shocked if it was really just one company's environments are shit and everybody converged to using them and whatever? Like, also no. Or even something even stranger happening. At the same time, you know what? I'll just take the other side here just for completeness, mostly. I was dismissive of the Mythos sort of breakthrough reports on similar grounds, that it was like a cynical ploy to whatever get regulated. And I have to say, Mythos is a particularly good model. So, like, all of these things might all be working together, to some degree. It's not that the models are not having the capability that is reported. Perhaps this particular hack could be avoided, but maybe the wider phenomenon does touch something real. So I have kind of said to myself that I will be a little bit more like cautious in commenting about this stuff because let me put it this way: it could be that something real happened and it works with the agendas of the companies, and that they are exploiting it. All these things could be happening at the same time.
Yeah, you mean as they exit the building for the day? I sure hope no agent decides to hack Hugging Face tonight.
No, I have said the Hugging Face will become the canonical unsaturated eval now, where if you haven't hacked Hugging Face, you don't get released.
Okay, all right. Well, let's close this out with just let's say two more stories here, Alex. Now, in the past, I have gone on several rants about Facebook / Meta and their rampant advertising pornography problem. I'm sure that this is a familiar sort of topic that I've gone on with you, Alex, that they have a problem where, according to their terms of service, there are many items that are in the pornographic direction, that are supposed to be against the terms of service and should not be on their platform. Yet, regularly, they have gratuitous sexual activity being advertised on their platform, often to either external web pages of varying, let's say, suspiciously named websites, things that are clearly just made by someone quickly, not a well-known .com, let's say, something .xyz or some weird top-level domain that is not well known for its reliability of hosting reputable individuals, to sell services like automatic AI nudification systems where you can post a photograph of some individual who did not consent to you seeing them nude and undressing them, or even when it's not taking real life photos and nudifying them, it is literal pornographic videos playing to advertise pornographic AI chats and video content generation. And I've complained about this regularly simply because it is a response to someone who, Alex, you informed me a while ago, was no longer specifically employed there, but it was a response to a very arrogant AI individual who was at the time the head of their AI department, and basically complaining about Elon Musk, where I do my complaints of Elon Musk, but I don't like lopsided complaints of Elon Musk, where, people are throwing stones at glass houses, inside of glass houses and stuff, right? If you're going to complain about Elon Musk being an idiot and you're in charge of the entire AI detection platform at Meta, it should be able to detect a breast and say, hey, this is violations of our policies. You should be able to have the basic classification systems down. Yes. But here, Alex, Jan LeCun is not to blame for this. As you've told me, he is now split off from Meta and just gets their money for his own projects. But this is still an imbalance in the reporting in the world, where Grok receives a unfair amount of criticism for its ability to produce nude imagery. Meta ran ads that contained AI-generated child sexual abuse imagery from Wired over the last 9 months. Now, fortunately, I have not come across the AI-generated child abuse material. I've just had really weird stepmother, stepbrother, all sorts of that kind of shit. Over the last 9 months, Mark Zuckerberg's Meta has run dozens of paid ads that include explicit AI-generated child sex abuse material and images of minors alongside sexually suggestive statements, according to details of the ads shared with Wired. The ads, which in some cases reached several thousand accounts, were targeted at people living in the United States, United Kingdom, and more than a dozen European countries. More than 50 image and video ads containing abusive content were recently discovered in Meta's ad library by researchers at the Tech Transparency Project, with the listings showing that some ads linked out to so-called nudified and undressing apps. So what I was just describing there. Meta's ad library, a transparency tool that catalogs ads displayed on the company's platform, shows the ads running across Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and/or Threads. The findings are the second time in recent weeks that paid ads linked to child sexual abuse material have been found on Meta's platforms. These ads made no effort to mask the images or hide what they were promoting. Katie Paul, the director of the TTP, an independent watchdog group, tells Wired. It's important to point out that this isn't content posted by third parties on Facebook or Instagram. These are ads that were reviewed, approved, and allowed to run by Meta, never encountering interference while the company collected the ad dollars, which is something I have complained about for several years. The ads discovered by the researchers, which have now been removed by Meta for violating its policies on child sexual abuse and exploitation material and adult sexual solicitation and nudity, were all published between November last year and the start of August. The ads, according to data in Meta's ad transparency library, often ran over a period of several days, and some only targeted men. One video ad, the TTP researchers say, used a thumbnail image of a child sitting on a floor with text appearing on top of it saying, "Realizing deep fantasies with Generation AI." There is so much more than what is shown. Use your imagination. The researchers say that when the ad is clicked, it plays video clips of adults involved in sexual acts, and then added the child's face from the thumbnail to the sex act. Another ad the researchers say had been repeatedly posted showed an image of a young girl laying back with her legs spread in a sexual position with the text above it saying, "I can show you more." Most of the ads are not actively being shown to users when researchers found them, but they contributed to be available apparently undetected in Meta's ad library for months. Although many of the ads, according to Meta's data, only reached a handful of accounts, at least one reached 2,563 accounts in Europe, including in France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. Meta's ad library database does not include details about ad performance in the US or all countries, so the overall reach may be higher. Paul says TTP first discovered the ads last week as its researchers continued to investigate nudify apps on Meta after publishing a report about a Chinese advertising partner posting them. Paul says the organization immediately reported the findings to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's cyber tip line, which allows people to report online child sexual abuse material. An MCMEC spokesperson says this it does not comment on reports it receives. Now, I can personally, I've never personally gotten these, these ads for children, but I did receive in Reels where Meta is showing you just random videos throughout the throughout the world. Many videos that I felt were attempting to exploit children, where they had external links embedded in them, where the children were doing, let's say, gymnastics routines that were very suggestive, that I thought were probably being bait for something inappropriate. And when you clicked the link to them, took you to adult sexual content. And I report these. I would report these to Meta as violations of their policies, and I would get actually rejected as not violating their content policies a large percentage of the time, which concerned me pretty greatly. This has been a long time pet peeve of mine, because they do not care. They do not care one iota if they can get away with it. They just
yeah.
They just continue to do it.
It does sound like that. Because again, like for people who look, on the one hand, you could say, like, is this sort of some sort of Cambridge Analytica situation where a very small problem is being blown to huge levels? Because if you hear about the numbers they're talking about, they're like dozens, literally dozens, and they've been shown to hundreds of accounts. which, frankly, in Facebook terms is nothing. However, the important thing here is that they should have a hard gate where this stuff just does not get through. So, one ad having one impression is a failure of a system that should exist. And frankly, back in the day, this was very hard to do. These days, it's trivial. So I kind of, come down on your side, Gator, where it's like they really have to not care for this to happen. There's no, I don't see how else.
10 years ago,
some really complicated way to obscure or blind their models by using like some embedded dots or whatever, but I don't see any of that.
Yeah, if you I've been like showing examples on my feed, attaching him to a long running feed that's been going for like several years now, just going like, what is going on? And it's getting in some ways worse, to where the one that I most recently saw is literal hardcore simulated AI generated pornography that lasts for approximately 2.5 minutes. It is not attempting to cover anything up. It is not just suggestive. It is literal penetration going on for like 2.5 minutes. I'm like, what is this? How is this getting through?
Well, you're clicking quite a few of these, Gators, so forgive them for tagging your account as interested.
Well, look,
you know where you are.
Well, I am. Listen, I understand that when it comes to algorithmically speaking, the fact that I keep recording and posting proof of these is upping my engagement, upping my signal. Yes, and giving me more
just
of them.
You're reporting
but
them.
They shouldn't
mean it doesn't count as engagement.
Yes, they shouldn't exist though, and that's where the problem ultimately lies.
Right.
I'm
exactly.
not, like so. But yeah, but I mean, it's and again, my specific pet peeve is like, look, I'm not a prude. I'm fine with parts of the internet having this type of activity, not the child stuff, but like the porn, general pornographic stuff. I'm not on some anti-porn crusade. And I'm not even personally offended when it comes across my feed on Facebook. It does not offend me personally from that standpoint. But if you're a company that claims to have terms of service that, if you recall, during the pandemic era, they were more than happy to punish people for just talking, stating opinions about their about lab leak or vaccines, but you claim to have this these laws against or rules against pornography, but yet you can show me many times over the years 100 different ads that violate your policy. I report them and you tell me it doesn't violate your policy. I'm going to assume you're up to no good. I'm going to assume that you're
if you are able to create a method to repeatedly and algorithmically identify these ads by having them shown to you, I bet you Meta can do at least that. Mm-hmm. How's this? Right? Because the very fact, it just occurred to me right now. The very fact that you are able to algorithmically amplify that content to come to you means there's neuron somewhere in Meta's algorithm that tags this content as what it is, which means that they can fucking find what that is and just like literally delete it. They're already classifying it. They don't need to classify it. It's already being classified. Yeah. Sorry, this is actually worse than it sounded at first. Now that I realize this.
No, you have a very If they're telling you that they can't identify it on the end because it's too difficult, yet they're able to continuously recommend it because you've amplified that signal. They have that signal in their algorithm. They can figure it out.
That's right. That is correct.
Yes. So
it doesn't even require additional computation. They can just identify the signal.
They could even err on the side of caution and ban things that technically should be allowed. They can do this.
You know that big tech companies never do this. So.
Oh, all right. And I guess to end this day here, Alex, it's rare that we have the wonderful opportunity to hear someone expose brand new stupid ideas. Over the course of human history, stupid ideas, they tend to all be uttered or in written form somewhere. It's hard to generate a brand new stupid idea. But Alex, it appears that we have such a luxury to witness the formation of a brand new stupid idea. And this was a New York Times interview by Ross Douthat with a man named Samuel Moyn, who is, according to Wikipedia, the Chancellor Kent Professor of Law and History at Yale University.
So I would say that it's not just out of that strategic concern that there aren't enough youth who aren't already resigned that I say we need intergenerational solidarity, because again, gerontocracy hurts older people too. And I'm convinced that there are a lot who see that they have hung on and they're part of an unjust structure. And so just as we've had transracial movements to attack racism, we could imagine intergenerational solidarity to think about a better form of succession in American society.
Let's say you get this intergenerational solidarity. Give me the anti-gerontocratic agenda. Give me let's say the 3 pillars.
Well, so I would just say there are buckets. There are the politicians whom I think we could benefit either from age limits, mandatory retirement for them, or I think better, a way of with youth quotas of having different age cohorts represented in our political bodies. When it comes to elections, we didn't talk about those, but elections are stunningly old, especially kind of non-presidential elections in our country.
So what do you do about that?
And there, I think there's a range of fixes, some more modest, like mandatory voting, stopping our practice of punishing young people for mobility or for their inability to leave work as easily as a retiree. I've gotten in some hot water for proposing we consider overweighting the votes of younger people or assigning the youngest eligible voters proxy votes for the unrepresented children of our country. So those are edgy.
Why not assign them to those children's parents?
Well, because there's a divergence of interest between parents and children. And I think it's likelier that young people, not people who are raising families, will have the best insight into the interests of children. Whereas if you were awarded 5 proxy votes,
daft. I think it's absurd to imagine that a 24-year-old recent college graduate has a better assessment of the interests of my own children than I do. I say this with all due respect to 24-year-old recent college graduates, of whom I hope to be the parent of in 9 years or so.
I think parents generally confuse the interests of their family with the interests of their children. And part of our goal, I think, as parents, but also as a society, is trying to make sure that children aren't the hostages of their parents as much as we rely on parents to raise them.
In my experience, parents are more likely to be the hostages of their children. But
so, Alex, there you go. Wow. I don't know if you can identify. I don't know if you can identify where the brand new dumb idea is being formed. The gases in space are accumulating, and the gravitational pull is coalescing and about to form that new
started out,
star.
Pretty reasonable, and I thought it had some good ideas in there, and that the proxy votes to new voters, as it says in the Constitution, 1 person, 1.5 votes. So, I think that's totally fine by me.
So, just so we're clear, people who have never met you, who just happen to be approximately similar in lower age and approximately similar in their ignorance, should have more voting power.
Because you exist. But thankfully, children are not going to be hostages of their parents. So mission accomplished.
And I love the idea that interests are just things that you think you want. They're not actual, like... I mean,
we could just elect one person from each demographic to just vote for the people in their demographic, right? We can just do that.
Well, I mean, what's a demographic, man? I mean, listen, there's age that's part of a demographic. There's cultural lineage / race that's part of a demographic. You know, there's
beautiful. Maybe we can give additional votes to people of different races for as a type of reparations for their peers that don't exist, but for the misallocation of resources in prior generations. How do you like that?
See, this is what happens when that star starts to form. You know, it winds up having nice little satellite planets start to swirl around it. The stupid starts to form its own new solar system, and it's a beautiful thing to witness. You only get to witness it so often.
Allow me to read you, just to close this off, a story that I just attached to this space. I don't know if you saw it. I don't even know if it's accurate, but frankly, on some level, it doesn't even fucking matter. This is a tweet from Jason, who is like a horrible person, really, even though fellow Greek. Anyway,
I've never met him, but he seems
just
fine.
Made 1 billion agent simulation, and in 14 hours of running it, they've already sent 4 million agents to the re-education camps. Seriously, we will soon to create an AI simulation of the planet Earth, in which the agents are conscious, believe they're human, and won't know they're in simulation. Take from that what you will. How's that for a closing off the space?
Well, now you at the start said that you were not yet sufficiently, you haven't had a sufficiently dumb week just yet. Did we satisfy the dumb quota for the week, Alex?
Yes, sir. Yes, I think I'm done. I'm done for the week.
All right. Okay. Thank you for joining, Alex. It's always a pleasure. I look forward to doing this again. I will see everyone.
Everybody else who participated, either by speaking or by listening, thank you for being here.
See you all next week.
See you next week.